Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads. Here is a man who... Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads. Here is a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the cunts, the dogs, the filth, the shit. Here is a man who stood up. Here is... And then it just kind of trails off.
Yeah.
Because we're in the mind of Travis Bickle, played by Robert De Niro.
Yes.
I thought about doing the very famous, like, you talking to me, but everybody does that, so figured change it up.
I didn't know that that's actually a big... The Clash use it in one of their songs.
The Clash?
Yeah. There's actually there's a couple songs that they wrote that they use the lines from Taxi Driver.
Like the you talking to me, or...
No, that.
Or like this...
Well, when
kinda,
he talks about the rain coming down and washing away the filth.
Washing away the shit of New York.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to come in here and clean this place up.
Yeah. Tell me your real thoughts, Travis.
He does. And that's the point.
How you really feeling there, man?
Yeah. Speaking of letting us in on people's thoughts, I'm going to ask you to let us in on people's thoughts who may not know the big news. Seems like you got a lot of news to offer us in your big life updates.
Yeah, life is happening fast. Yeah, engaged. So
to me,
yeah.
Our wedding will be beautiful.
Yeah. Just like Leonard Bernstein's.
Yeah. Very much so.
To the lovely Jasmine. I asked her to marry me, and she thankfully and willingly said yes. So, yeah, that was exciting. I mean, it's like one of those things where it's nice now that I don't have to introduce myself to strangers as her lover. You
didn't just say you were her boyfriend.
No, I thought it was that's too flat.
That's too juvenile. This is too high school.
I think about the third time I did it, she asked me to stop doing it because she said it seems like there's more than one.
Oh yeah, when she introduced you to her grandpa.
Yeah, and I said no.
That was kind of the final
I'm
straw.
her lover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shook his hand.
Yeah, I had to look up the definition of lover or how it was taken in.
It's got a very I don't know, intimate connotation.
That's
right?
what I was thinking, but I guess that some people think it might imply that you're the main squeeze, as opposed,
an affair thing.
Yeah, kind of like there's more than one of me.
Like it could almost mean mistress.
Maybe not mistress.
I'm Jasmine's mistress.
Yeah, multiple girlfriends or boyfriends. So
yeah.
No, now it's nice to actually say you got a she's my fiance. So
I'll say you upgraded titles right there.
Yeah,
100%.
I'd always say it's really hard when you go in and it's like, how do you tell someone this is a person you care about most in the world, but she's just your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure,
my GF.
Yeah, we have a kid together and she's my girlfriend, so she would commonly say baby mama, which I tried to stray away from.
Yeah.
That gives it even worse.
I feel like that's worse than lover.
Yeah. I always thought lover was a good one. My
it's got a little bit of upper class to it, but it's still kind of sus.
It feels like a Casanova thing, right?
Yeah, there's a bit of romance to it.
Yeah, but also
oh, my lover,
some distrust behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So
some nefariousness.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where she would, she definitely would. She'd blush, but then she'd kind of hey, let's not tell people that. And I'm like, it's already too late. That's how they know us. But now it's fiance, and it's fantastic. I mean, we're both really excited and. I think the way that our relationship is, and I think it's kind of how I am with a lot of people, not to say everyone's my fiance, but, we're so close together that it just feels like it was a next progression that needed to happen. Mm-hmm. So we're incredibly excited about it. And we're planning and, yeah, I mean, it's been a fun week.
You heard it here first, folks. Parker wedding in April of 2024.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You guys move quick.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
I feel like, and I was going to interject this whenever I could, but partner would probably be like a very neutral
That's
term.
what. See, now you said neutral, and I'm like, I want people to know that there's passion behind what I'm saying.
Oh, you don't want it to be too rice cakey. I gotcha.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like you say, partner, everyone. Like that's the lame or easy version to say more than a girlfriend, but less than a wife. You know.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's a safe way to go when you go into a conversation with someone.
Right.
But it also lets them know that you're lame.
It's very,
You know.
it's very politically neutral, but you're also kind of a fucking square.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that's not me.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you're like, hey, we have a kid together. Like you want a little bit more than just a partner because now everyone thinks you guys are eating TV dinners in front of the TV on the couch, you know, at 6 o'clock at night and then go to bed at 8.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a smooch and then you turn over. It's like, no, there's more going on. And the kid suggests that. So, you know, I always thought it was good, but now it's fiance, and fiance is way more appropriate, and it won't embarrass her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to progress into the old ball and chain, you know?
No, I don't ever think that would occur. She's awesome. I mean, she's definitely supportive of me, and you know, I'm a very fickle person when it comes to relationships. So like, you know, my network, I like people, but to get into the, you know, this is what's going on, I think, at least for me, you know, it takes a lot, and I like to think I'm making the right decision, and with her, it's like 1,000%.
Yeah. Well, you better be making the right decision. Otherwise, you're going to be in the doghouse. Arf, arf.
Yeah.
All right, we better fucking stop.
Yeah, we'll cut that out in post.
Debatable. So, I don't really have any movie news or anything.
Yeah,
so,
not a lot's going. It's the time of the year.
Yeah, it's January. It's
Yep.
like the dry season. Happy New Year, by the way.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be remiss to mention that. I'd also be remiss to not mention that my name is Kyle, by the way.
And my name's Mac.
I am glad I remembered to squeeze that in there because sometimes I just straight up forget that we need to say our name so people know who we are.
I think we got to hook in with the lover talk.
I probably.
Yeah, you know.
If they haven't shut us off by then.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be going away after that. Hopefully not. So I figured we'd kind of just jump into the film discussions because I know we have a few questions too.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, I try to get the questions in, but also I think we got at least one meaty topic, if not two.
Yeah, there's a good chunk that we can discuss. But speaking of chunk, there's a good chunk of Leonard Bernstein's life that we get to observe with this movie from Bradley Cooper called Maestro. It's about, some music or some shit.
You want to take this one? You want me to do Taxi Driver, or you want to do Taxi Driver?
I'll do this one.
Okay.
You recommended Taxi Driver, so you can have you can have that one.
Okay.
Even though that's my favorite Scorsese, but you can have it.
Yeah. Well, that's why. Listen, man, this is like the food on the. Like, here you go. It's your chance to switch it.
I don't need any more food.
Yeah.
Even though I'm actually very hungry right now. So Maestro, this is a 2023 biographical romantic drama film, directed by Bradley Cooper, written by Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer, pretty apt last name, and it stars Bradley Cooper as Leonard Bernstein or Bernstein. I might interchange them here and there. I feel like the movie called him Bernstein.
I think so too.
So I might try to pronounce it that way. And it follows him, famous composer from real life, and kind of does a little bit of what Priscilla does in that it kind of focuses more on like his relationship with his wife and kind of, a bit more of like the stuff around his music and like his other relationships with people is a little bit more ancillary, where it's like mostly focused on him and Carey Mulligan, who plays Felicia Montalegre. Hopefully I pronounced that okay.
Yep.
And is a pretty tight-knit look at their whole thing going on.
Yeah.
And we watched this movie. It's one of those where we're kind of getting like a trend. I don't want to say trend, but it's like a very artistic look at a real-life person. I feel like we've been getting a lot of movies like this recently with like Blonde and Oppenheimer, just different things where we're taking like this real life person and we're kind of putting a more artistic lens on them and focusing on one very specific aspect about their life that may or may not result in a good film, so we can get into it. Top level, what are your thoughts on Maestro?
Yeah, I agree. I read a couple reviews on this thing just to kind of, I don't even want to say help cement. I just wanted to know what other people thought. I do agree that there are these biopics that are coming out that we are looking or solely focusing on a certain aspect of someone's life and then trying to tie in themes and metaphors into some of the actions that are going on or the relationships and maybe like what they reflect outside of their lives. And it's a weird way to go about a plot, you know? Mm-hmm. With that being said, though, with this one, and I don't know much about Leonard or Lenny, I think they call him.
Yeah.
I'll probably just call him Lenny to avoid the whole Bernstein. I think it's Bernstein too, but I don't want to offend anyone. So, it's a very interesting take on this guy who's just a music composer that has a very lavish lifestyle. And
very eccentric,
leading almost like a dual life. And it was a little bit hard to get a read on who knew what and what was going on in terms of what you thought of Lenny. Mm-hmm. And the relationship that he has with Carey Mulligan throughout the film is, I don't know if it's reflective on what was going on in his life or what was transpiring, Like some of the time, and we'll talk about it with Taxi Driver, but there's a lot of things going on in the film that help you get a better sense about how he is internalizing or taking things in. Mm-hmm. With this one, I never really felt that there was ups and downs. It was more about the dichotomy of their relationship, and I would say essentially how what he was doing was affecting other people, but you never felt that there was ever too stressful outside of like moments.
No, and I think that's kind of the thing with this movie is that it feels like it wants to focus on his relationship with his wife, but then at the same time, the movie treats his relationship with his wife as something that's kind of out of focus. Like it's not really something that they delve too much into. It's just a very surface level viewing of it. And I feel like it to kind of like lead into like our thoughts on this movie. I kind of had the opposite problem with this film that I had with Blonde, in that Blonde to me was almost way too tumultuous for its own good, in that every single scene was just miserable conflict arising from no organic source whatsoever. Like things would just happen to make Ana de Armas in that movie just cry her eyes out, or naked.
Yeah.
Basically, right? Crying and naked oftentimes in the film. Whereas with this movie, it's very much like it kind of meanders through different periods of Leonard Bernstein's wife, having us focus a little bit on, I say a little bit, but it's basically like the spine of the movie, his relationship with his wife. But then it doesn't really feel like there's much that comes from that in terms of character relationships or a dynamic. It feels quite repetitive, honestly, in the way that it handles it, in that it doesn't really feel like we're getting much from it. It feels like we're just kind of watching it, and then Leonard Bernstein just gets his hand, he gets a slap on the wrist for hitting on guys every single time that he does it. And then, it does result in like them like taking a break from each other, but then they kind of come back to each other. Yeah. And it doesn't really feel like I'm trying to figure out the purpose of this movie, and I don't quite see it because to me it feels very muddled and meandering.
I took it a different way in the sense that because he's living this dual life, Carey Mulligan was the medium in which we get to see how his actions affect the world around him. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if maybe it would affect his music, or if it's just simply as affecting her. And there's a couple times where they had some deeper conversations that I felt like we're supposed to take away a little bit more than what they were discussing. But it never felt like, because of what he was doing, and he swung both ways. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
So,
movie
like-
makes it very clear that he's at the very least bisexual.
Yeah, and
At the very least.
I guess that it was at a time too, because I read a little bit on the wiki on this, because I was like fascinated by like what was going on, because he's a fun character, you know. He's eccentric, but I mean he's a smart, witty dude, you know, and he's a fun guy to like see going throughout the day to day. And Carey Mulligan almost had to play like and she wasn't even like the straight man in it, you know, not sexually, but like as opposed to their personality, like they were both really fun in the film. And I thought that maybe her purpose was more to serve as him, as he puts on all these faces, and it's at her expense, you know. And I thought at one point, by the time we got to the Thanksgiving dinner, where they had to talk about how, and all of a sudden it just turned into his music and him being a genius and affecting and doing this and that and leading, you know. And I was like, are we talking about music here? What are we talking about?
It seems very unfocused to me,
and
right?
I think maybe to some extent because he was a little unfocused as a person, right?
It did feel like so, and maybe that's what they tried to emulate with the way that this film was structured.
That's what I'm talking about.
Because
with the
Leonard
dual
Bernstein,
life.
it seems like he has, you know, and I don't want to be reductive about it when I say this, but like a very ADHD personality just when it comes to like who he gives his attention to and what he focuses on.
Yeah.
So then the movie kind of feels like that, where you're watching it and you're just kind of like following it from like his perspective, but also very much from Carey Mulligan's perspective, where like it gets unfocused, it gets kind of confusing. You're not really sure what you're supposed to gain out of it, and you're not entirely sure like where it's going or like what the purpose of it is.
That's what I thought the linear plot line was for. And you can see it's almost like you have the bass line, like if you're looking at an audio bar, you know, and that bass line just plays out, and then you can see the radio waves going through it, and you can see these peaks and valleys of his life as she kind of rides that bass line of this is where we should be at. And we get to see how he is just drifting up and down along this bass line with no true, you know, he's got no true baseline of himself. So I think that's where, like, I think we're kind of saying the same thing with it being out of focus a little bit, was the fact that he's got so many different faces that he puts on that he doesn't even really know who he is. But we never, it almost like he comes to him. I think the movie ultimately resolves that he loves himself for that. You look at someone, I mean, I hate to keep going back to Taxi Driver, but I think this was a decent pairing with what's going on.
Also, Martin Scorsese produced this movie.
Yeah.
And was
Spielberg.
at one point supposed to direct it.
Yeah, did you? Spielberg saw a cut of A Star Is Born, and that's when he was like, "Hey, we want you doing this."
Yeah, he wanted Bradley Cooper to direct it after he saw that movie.
And apparently, like Bradley Cooper said, he like loves Leonard Bernstein and I don't remember what. Like he saw him when he was very young, and he said he was influential in his life, so he just wanted to be a part of it.
Sure, Leonard Bernstein loved a lot of people too.
I thought it was smoke up my ass for, well, maybe not the right choice of words, but from what Bradley had to say about it. But you know, like in Taxi Driver, you can kind of see with that dissent, whereas this one he embraced it. So
Yeah.
I feel like excuse me, that played a little bit of part into the film, but there isn't, I don't know what you would consider the plot of this film besides it just kind of looking at like almost kind of fly on the wall about this man's life.
Fly on the wall, and I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's not necessarily something that I really made like too much of a connection to, is that the way the film is structured is very much in line with the way he was behaving in the film. Really, the problem with me in relation to this movie is that I really didn't get much out of it when it's structured like that, when it's presented in that way. And I don't know, there's just some things that I really couldn't connect with in this movie. I had kind of a hard time with it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think that the best and the strongest scenes in this movie are when Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper meet in the film. And they meet at the party, and they go to the stage, and they kind of have that back and forth banter.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely believed their connection. I believed that they were two people who found the curiosities and the wonder in each other really fascinating. And I really like the idea of, you know, Leonard Bernstein is so infatuated with other people. He doesn't want to be alone ever. He always wants to be with somebody, even if that means like kissing them if he's a little tipsy, you know. But to me, with those scenes, it kind of told me right off the gate that like he wasn't necessarily like just physically attracted to her. Like he was way more into her personality and her dynamic with him than anything else.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see throughout the film like her sort of trying to play catch up with that, but he is just way too far into it to where like he kind of takes off and he kind of leaves her in the dust. And that's kind of like the strongest part of this movie for me, and that's the part I connect with the most. It's like, okay, I can kind of see like the through line of what they're doing here with him just kind of like going and doing his own thing constantly, and like her just doing her best to try and catch up with him.
See, I think that the Thanksgiving scene they talk about, and that actually helped me out. She might have been associating music with love or using music as a metaphor, because she starts yelling at him that he's such a musical genius and that he can't tame it, and he flaunts it in front of all of us. And I think it's actually a metaphor for you have all this love that you can give and that you can take in with people and that you can express, and you leave all of us behind as you just kind of flaunt it around, because not all of us can pour our hearts into so many people, and the reason why I bring it up is because when they talked about it, it was so not much of the music had been being discussed, like that's one of the things that like intrigued, maybe not intrigued me, but kind of I was like, I don't really get is that we're looking at this guy's life and him being this like significant composer, and yet we only touch on the music here and there, and
you get like one major scene of him composing like a really big grand piece, and it's like a one shot, and it's technically very impressive.
I thought that I really like that scene. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
that scene isolated by itself, I think, is really well made.
And it's weird that the culmination is up to that point, because you'd almost say that could be the climax of the film, and it kind of feels off with everything else going on.
It's a little disjointed,
right? Because we're talking about so many different things, and I'm just curious if the message here was his music was really played out because of his love that he was able to give, and that's where you get into a lot of we're not going to talk about you being, bisexual, but like we're gonna mask it with what you're able to do with, your freaking wand.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gideon.
Oh yeah, he's gonna care about Leonard Bernstein.
Well, I was just thinking, I don't know what the conductor waves. I'm sure it's got some fancy name. It's probably Latin.
Yeah, it's called a stick.
Yeah, God
in America.
Damn it.
You fucking commies. You little artsy fartsy French boys.
It's kind of how I felt I was watching this thing, and I'm like, I wonder how other people are taking this in, because I could see a certain portion of America like throwing up at points of this thing.
Right. You would not catch like 50% of the population watching this movie in America.
About a gay music conductor.
Hey, he's bisexual.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll get like 65% of the population.
That's kind of how I was soaking it in. I thought that they were doing a little bit of the masquerading, and I think it is tough though when you with like this subject matter and you have such a polarizing character. I think that the strength of the movie needs to be focused on Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan, their performances, and a little bit of their relationship, and kind of that wonder that they both have in each other, and how much they actually do care for each other, even though at points it seems like they both hate each other, or you can't really tell, is he still into her, and
is there still feelings there like both ways, or is it just like a one-sided thing? Is it just completely her trying to keep up with him in every single aspect of their relationship?
And I don't think at points it was, but I mean towards the end there, like he took off with Tommy, moved to Northern California, which I wish they would have explained a little bit more, because they were separated, right? And I read this in his wiki bio. Jasmine's probably like throwing up right now hearing me say that, because wiki is totally unofficial, but whatever. He actually moved in with Tommy for 3 years, like when they were separated in the late 70s. And when he's doing coke and he's like, "Oh, I'll give it to everyone."
Very casually doing cocaine.
Yeah, I'm serving everyone the coke,
Yeah.
And an interesting scene is he goes in to call his daughter and he shuts the door, And I didn't know if it was a metaphor for coming out of the closet or if it was a bigger, like, they always talk about how he couldn't be alone. And that was like, that's probably the first time
he'll
he's
even
ever
be
really,
sitting on the toilet and he has to have the door open to talk to someone.
Yeah. And here he is in this room seeking isolation to talk to his daughter. So it's probably as lonely as he's ever felt in his life. And
well, there's the idea, too, that you can surround yourself with so many people, but you can also be in such a bad mental state that you are just metaphorically alone.
Yeah. And that, so, I gleaned more off the performances of this film than I actually like of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny thinking about it because I was like, I think when I watch films, Super Mario Brothers comes to mind.
Interesting poll, but okay.
I look at the film and what it was intended for, or what are the strengths of it, and I kind of put it in like an isolated area where, and that's how my ratings reflect stuff. What did I like? What did I like the most about this, or what was the strengths of this film? Like, and some films don't even have strengths, but like this one, the character.
Some films are all strength, like Fateful Findings.
Some characters, like this thing. I mean, it's just tour de force. And I thought the plot's not all that great, but like, I really do think. I mean, Leonard Bernstein's fascinating. Bernstein's fascinating, and what was going on was fascinating. It's interesting, like what you could have did outside of what they did.
Right. I think at least to kind of like paint my perspective of how I feel about this movie. I think a good comparison to kind of pull is Priscilla, that also came out this year.
I've not seen that.
I think that one is kind of a good one to compare this to because Priscilla is very much solely focused on Priscilla Presley's relationship with Elvis. And, obviously it's kind of a different case because Priscilla Presley herself is kind of an iconic figure. You could say her name and people will know who you're talking about for the most part. But that movie is very much just a simple, straightforward focus from her point of view of like her relationship with Elvis, her time at his ranch, the kind of like isolated feeling that she felt, kind of being robbed of her childhood, essentially, because she was 14 when they met. Yep. Not being able to live in her teenage years and revel in those like, most teenage girls would have been able to.
Yeah.
So I really, that movie I kind of have my issues with as well, but that movie to me is a little bit more focused in what it's trying to do because you're also gleaning other stuff from it, like how Elvis was as a person too, and like his relationship and just kind of like the state he was in at the time, but it's all from the lens of Priscilla Presley. Yeah. Whereas this one, I don't know, to me, and I get it, maybe the intention's there of like, matching with the energy of Leonard Bernstein, but the unfocused nature of it was not helping me connect with a lot of what was going on at all, especially after when they first initially get together. It kind of takes me out of it. I like a lot of what is technically happening in this movie. Like, it looks great. A lot of the cinematic choices and the visuals are cool. Like, it's one of the better black and white movies, at least like in that first 40 minutes that I've seen. Like, it feels like they actually filmed it in a way where it was meant to be filmed in black and white. But I don't know, there's just different things about this that I just really could not piece together for like, I don't know, it's hard to explain because like there's the unfocused nature of it, and then there's a little bit of the performance stuff too that I kind of have an issue with. And
you didn't
then
like the performances?
I didn't hate them. I really like Carey Mulligan. I think that she knocks it out of the park.
You didn't like Lenny?
To me, I don't know if I want to say overacting, but it really felt like he was just kind of. See, I don't even want to say trying too hard because he does a good job and it's okay. But like there were some points where like it kind of took me out of it. Like there were some points where like the way he was carrying himself and the way he was performing and the way he was talking, and I'll admit I don't really know how Leonard Bernstein sounds.
That's the difference, I think.
But I don't know. To me, it felt like I was watching Bradley Cooper playing Leonard Bernstein than I was watching Leonard Bernstein.
See, I had the exact different. Maybe, and that's probably the difference in how we viewed it. Because I I got immersed with what was going on and what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was like, this is fun. And I don't know enough about the guy. So all I can do is take it at face value, if you will. So like, if there's a preconceived notion or I would say, if there's any discrepancy in it, and from a couple of the reviews I read from people that have either met him or seen him, they said Cooper did really well.
Yeah.
I could see it being like, oh, that's too flamboyant or that's too out of left field. Like he took a guy that's kind of eccentric and made him exceptionally eccentric, you know? But that was the difference. I didn't really have that. I took it for face value and I was like, man, if that's how that guy was, like he like absolutely loved life, and like what he was doing. But conversely though, I could see if you're not buying into that, how it would take you out of it. Cause we were essentially with him 75% of the film.
And I don't think it also helps too that I think Carey Mulligan is given a little bit more to do in terms of variety. So there are scenes where she has to kind of like play up with him, like catch up with him, like match his energy when they first meet, and then like as the film goes along, you kind of see her struggling with their relationship and kind of like dealing with the fact that like he likes to get a little too friendly with people.
Dude, she's like, yeah, I like their relationship. I liked it because I took it from how would you feel? You're Carey Mulligan, you're married to this man. He's a genius. You're absolutely in love with everything he does. And all of a sudden you find out he's swinging both ways and you have to compete with not only women, but men now. Mm-hmm. Like you're going into everything in a sense of like, God knows what he's going to do. Like I think she just got worn out just being with him. Yeah. And it was his frenetic energy that, like you said, catch up with. It was just holding on to. Yeah. And like that first... And it's obviously the honeymoon stage of when they are all just running around and happy, and then all of a sudden you get into the settling down, and he doesn't,
Yeah, and then you can definitely see that the further it goes along in the film, like kind of like that wearing down on her, and kind of like whittling her down to the point where like and even when they get back together, like they do a good job of like how they handle the cancer stuff and portraying that in a way that feels respectful, whereas like Cooper playing Bernstein, however it's pronounced, Lenny, thank you, for the most part, and there are certain scenes where like it variates and it changes, but he's being himself, he's being that character who matches that energy all the time of like, I just love people, and I'm going to show people that I love people, and I'm an eccentric, happy guy, and I love life, and I'm very passionate about everything. Yeah. And, to me, it tells me that Carey Mulligan at least had a little bit more to do in terms of acting.
She had, I think there's, she when you think, she had the most emotional range to go about, because Cooper's playing, and not to say he's playing one tone, I think there's times when you get the sense of, like I said, when he's in the closet talking, like that loneliness, the isolation, the depression, you get a sense of when he's upset. He's not sure what's going on when he hears about the cancer. And for most people like that, because I've been around people that have that energy level that constantly like nothing will get us down. Mm-hmm. It's every time you pivot, even if it's in like a bad stage, they still carry that, hey, everything's going to be all right. It's just a different tone of what they give to you. And it's a different sense of what they're communicating and how they're interacting with you. Yeah. Like what's funny is like, if you, and not to like, I hate to go just dogs, but like at the very beginning, they're two puppies. And then throughout the movie, she just becomes this older dog, whereas he's a puppy the whole time. And even at the end of the film, you like when he's dancing with what they do the orchestra thing and they do the, at the college, and he's still going at it. Like he never loses that energy, and I don't, to me that's what made it fun. That's what
it was a little repetitive for me. But.
And I will say, if you're not vibing it or you're not thinking like, oh yeah, and you're starting to you get muddled down more into like it's just one tone, that energy loses the appeal by the end of the film, because by the end of the film, if you're just going off of like, all right, like got it, character growth, there's not much from him, but at the same token too, I don't know if this isn't really like conventional hero's journey. I mean, it's just it's not, it's a look at at a man's life and how he was. So, depending on how you take it, like I took it at face value, and he all the shit he was doing, I was like laughing. I was like, man, it's fucking wild.
Yeah. I don't think it also helped too that because of how repetitive I found it, the pacing just wasn't there for me. And I found myself like checking the runtime to see like when it was going to kind of like wrap up. It's like, okay, where are we going? And when you get the same sort of scenes over and over and over again, it's like, I get it. He's kind of a slut. Like, I don't really need much more convincing to know that this guy kind of gets around and he loves people a little too much. But I can also see where, like, if you're in your position, you're taking it at face value, you're getting more of what you enjoy seeing, where it's like that dynamic of, oh, he's very passionate, and you kind of see that through his music, but also his conversations and the way that Bradley Cooper plays the character.
He did.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then you also see it through like Carey Mulligan's eyes. Like, there's a lot going on, but to me, it doesn't feel like it's specific enough to keep my enjoyment.
No, and I agree. And, like I said, some of the reviews I read, I mean, you can't argue there is no plot, and what they lean on is this relationship between him and his wife. And you got this very energized conductor that's a genius with music, and we don't even focus on the music. We're going to look at their relationship. Carey Mulligan's going to go through all of this emotional range with how she had to spend this life with him, and we're just going to keep looking at the same thing. I mean, it's like, all right, we're happy. He does something stupid. I'm sad. He cheers me up. We're happy. He does something stupid. We're sad. And it's, I guess you're just looking at situations and events that get brought in, and some of it's got to be curiosity too, of like, like when you were done with the film, were you like, I want to learn more about Leonard Bernstein? Or were you like,
not really?
All right, that guy was a conductor. Great job.
Honestly, not really.
Yeah. Like I was like, I got done with it. I was like, dude, wait, what? Like, how did this guy, people that have, I guess people like Napoleon, like when you talk about these people that have like this like one dimension about them that they were just more excellent than anyone else in the world. It's kind of like, how did you get there? And it's like, what are key factors, or what happened in your life, or like what are some of your personality traits, and that stuff kind of fascinates me with like, all right, like this dude was a gay Jewish American that became the only American conductor for, I hate to say it, I wasn't really sure in the world, or to lead a certain orchestra, but like, how do you get there, especially with what you're masking, and that's, I think, the other aspect about it too, is like if nothing really comes around these characters and you're getting involved with like their lives or what they got to or like what's going on, and it's more of a look at just like, man, it's rinse and repeat. This movie, I think, will be one of the more like on Rotten Tomatoes, where they have the critic score and the audience score.
Yeah,
I could see this being like a 90 critic score and a 40 audience score. Like there's definitely like. Well, and not to say it could be the other way too. It could be a 40% critic, 90% audience. I think that there's like there's a
more mixed reception for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think I think it's a lot more black and white in how people take it.
Literally for the first 40 minutes.
Yeah, than other and then other films of where there's a lot more discussions, talking points, and like, well, it was perceived this way, or you had to look at it that way, or the guy did, like this one feels like if you don't like Lenny, or you're just kind of, it's gonna get really repetitive. Yeah,
it's one of those movies where like, I feel like if you ask anybody who's seen it what their opinion is, you're not gonna get the same opinion twice. Like, it's kind of like an interesting sort of test in that way, of like a sort of snowflake indication of the movie, where like each perspective on it is unique. Each person watching it is trying to get something different out of it, or like they get something different out of it.
Yeah.
They like it, they don't like it, they're kind of lukewarm on it. To me, it's one of those things where like us talking right now is kind of like me trying my best to articulate what it is I'm not a huge fan of this movie.
I think dude, it's easy. I mean, it's you got a one-tone character that's leading the film and a plot that really doesn't exist.
And that's really my biggest thing.
Like, I mean, it's just, you're looking at it. Sam didn't like Oppenheimer, right? If Oppenheimer
he didn't like Barbie or Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Oh, what a bad fucking weekend for him.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, like, dude, you talk about it was his birthday.
More like a Floppenheimer, am I right?
If you don't get invested in that dude's life, right? and like invested in kind of the story of what's going on, it's gonna be a drag. And it's as simple as that. I mean, I think with this film, I mean, it's one of those things if you don't get invested with the characters, because that's all we focus on.
Yeah.
And those Blonde, for instance, there are people out there that might be their favorite film, and we're the fuck nuts that.
I don't think I want to meet them.
No, exactly.
We're the fuck
nuts. Like what I'm saying, and.
We are the fuck nuts.
Yeah,
You're
they
right.
gave him a horrible rating. But
you know what? If me, in my opinion, on Blonde makes me a fuck nut, I will gladly wear that title.
Dude, I would wear a shirt.
Yeah.
It'd be a great. Hey, there you go. Neon merch 2024.
Wear it to Willow's first parent-teacher conference.
That'd be great. At least I know where I'm at with movies.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those types of films, like, you gotta, if you're not into the characters, especially the biopics, like Lincoln's another one, I would say, good luck.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and I bring up the comparison again, like, Blonde was so tumultuous that I have no reason to care because, like, everything's cranked up to fucking 12. Whereas this movie, it's like it doesn't ever like get there for me. It doesn't feel like it's doing enough to like really grab me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm saying, like, the first review I read on this thing, this guy goes out and he goes his grandpa and Lenny went to Harvard together, where they studied music. So he got to see more of the guy and was genuinely curious because he was growing up when like Lenny was a big part of the music scene, right?
Yeah.
And he said he goes, this movie blows 6 out of 10, and then he goes, dude, and it was just a really funny review because he goes, this movie blows. There's no plot. The relationship, the relationship that they have and that they focus on, this is all ludicrous. They don't do enough of the music. With that being said, Carey Mulligan, tour de force. Bradley Cooper's amazing, nailing down Lenny, with his antics and how he did things. Beautifully shot. Cinema's great. Really like the acting, and their relationship seemed genuine. And like, I'm like, how the fuck do you get a 6 out of 10? But that's just where it is. The story, if not invested, I think becomes really dry and repetitive. And
that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. And we don't, not to beat a dead horse with it. Outside of that, I mean, the cinematography and the score is great,
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked a lot of the transition scenes.
I do have to bring up, before we wrap this up, I need to bring this scene up where he pulls up in the car and he's listening to, I think, REM.
Yeah.
And they've got the line with Leonard Bernstein. They mention him in the song, and his license plate says Maestro. I kind of was like, all right, that's a big fucking cheeseball scene right there. Get this out of here.
Yeah, I think it could have been his ego too. I mean, he's wild. I mean, and it's kind of funny that we're talking. Like, he's a genius music conductor.
To me, the movie kind of went from like a little small ham sandwich to like, okay, you just threw the whole hawk at my face right there.
Well, like, so what do you like? That's why I guess I don't. So you think
that scene specifically? It's such a small nitpicky thing, but it was so like on the nose. And maybe Leonard Bernstein had a license plate that said Maestro on it, and maybe he was listening to the song. But
you think it was too grandiose? Like he wasn't even that egotistical.
It felt like too much.
Yeah. I didn't, and I guess even if I miss it, the guy, I have no idea about the guy. I mean, like the one scene that cracked me up is that he's like 75 partying with the gay black dude, and they're listening to Shout and like a techno dance hall, and they're grinding up on each other, and I'm like, how one, the energy level of this dude. Two, like, you're fucking 75. Like, how is this still even going on? So,
right.
And like, that's why I was just sitting there. I'm like thinking, like, I don't know anything about this guy. This guy seems wild, but like, it curiosity with, just being, I guess, just being a genius and being able to carry on like that. I mean,
Carry on, my wayward son.
Yeah.
There'll be peas when you are done. People think it's peace, but it's not. It's peas, the vegetable.
Yeah.
Was there anything else we wanted to say about Maestro that we didn't touch on?
I don't think there's. No.
Okay. Let's get into ratings then. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Do you want to end on Taxi? You want to do your Taxi Driver one? Your rating for that one last?
Sure. I can do that one last. Yeah. This movie, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. It's one of those where I enjoy aspects about it. The cinematography is beautiful. Carey Mulligan's great. Despite the fact that there were a lot of moments where it just felt like I was watching Bradley Cooper do an impersonation, I could tell that there was at least passion behind it. A lot of the music's good. Just isolated scenes that really impressed me, but overall a movie that kind of failed to really make a connection with me.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10.
Ooh, I had 6 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Yeah, like I said, to me, this movie feels like this is going to be a little bit more black and white for if you like it, don't like it. Like I feel like this is an easier one where there's a thumbs up, thumbs down, and there's not the 2 thumbs down, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Like I think there's enough going on with it. I enjoyed it. I liked Lenny. I liked the character performance that Cooper gave us. I thought him and Carey Mulligan were great. The relationship, odd as it was, and I think they tried to tie in more themes in with it to kind of carry the film that just get lost. And it's not on people. I mean, even on me. But I can't. The production, the score, the cinematography. I really like the transitions. I thought this was a great job by Cooper. The fucking dance, or not the dance, but the conducting and the German symphony. I mean,
yeah,
outstanding. So
that's a great scene.
That is like that's like an Oscar Beatty scene,
100%.
Right.
And that's a term that I've been avoiding this whole conversation because that's getting thrown like left and right.
Yeah.
Which it's not one that I entirely disagree with either, but to me that scene, it's like it's genuinely a good scene and you can tell he's putting passion behind it.
Oh yeah.
That being said, that did cross my mind of like he's kind of throwing some ham on this a little bit.
I mean, for the whole thing seems like Netflix is trying to get a grab here. But anyways, rewatchability is probably like one of the things that I've actually thought about, and that's actually one of that impacts some of my scores. But I had this at a 9 out of 10. I don't think I'd be able to rewatch this anytime too soon. So I'm an 8 out of 10 with it. Like
still a good score.
Yeah. Like I said, the one major flaw to me, and it is probably, really what just drives a film is the plot. So people are probably like very contradicting, but everything else was so grand to me that I really enjoyed what was going on. It's just, if they could have picked something else to focus on and maybe pick the music and how it impacts your life and what you're doing with outside of that and how it impacts your relationships.
I'll say this. It does feel like Bradley Cooper really cares about this movie. It doesn't feel like he's doing it out of like obligation or cash grab or anything.
Right.
Yeah, no phoning it in. It feels like he's putting 100% into it. So I appreciate that.
Dude, one of the first editing scenes when he's up in the loft and then they go down through the orchestra onto this, into the Philharmonic Symphony or the Philharmonic. Anyways, great. I mean, a lot of the transitions and some of the dance scenes in here, and then the music. Yeah. So I don't think that this was intended to just win awards. I definitely think that there's some passion behind it.
Well, I guess we'll find out come Oscar season. That's coming up.
I wouldn't be shocked. Well, I don't know. I think he should be nominated. I don't know. I might be shocked if he won it, but
I would guess he might get a nomination. She probably will get a nomination. And it'll probably get a few technical stuff, most notably cinematography.
Yeah, the cinematography in this is great.
I would not be surprised.
It's also, do you think Scorsese got on a camera?
I don't know. It does have especially the black and white. It does kind of have that Scorsese feeling to it sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think he said at the time he was going to make it at the time he made The Irishman, but he stepped down to do The Irishman and gave it to Cooper and was a producer on it. Whether or not, I don't know how often he would have been on set, but I don't know.
That's what I'm kind of...
It wouldn't surprise me if he had a conversation with Cooper and was like, just so you know, this is like kind of the way I do this. This is the way I have the cameras and like the visual setup and everything. So if you want to do like a black and white thing, here's some tips and tricks on how to get it looking sharp and how you want it. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that conversation took place, but at the end of the day, we just don't know.
It's true. We don't. It was just one of the things when you see the credits and they show that Scorsese and Spielberg were attached to it.
I know. That's a very pairing right there.
Yeah, and it's
powerful.
like, I wonder, did anyone have any like production notes or any like, hey, Bradley?
That's got to feel good for Bradley Cooper, knowing that like Spielberg and Scorsese, two of the biggest directors of all time, are in your corner.
I mean, have you seen A Star Is Born?
Not yet.
It's got some emotional weight.
I'm curious to check it out, especially after watching this movie. Despite my score, I'm still, it's interested in Cooper.
I was about to say, it's a well done. You can't knock the film. I mean, it's more of like how it's going, but he didn't write well, he might have. I don't know. You said something about him and Singer or someone in Singer.
It was Cooper and Josh Singer, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Did the screenplay.
But I'm not shocked that Scorsese and Spielberg were like, hey, let's link up.
Yeah. Speaking of Scorsese, we watched a film that was directed by him that you recommended called Taxi Driver. This is one of those rare instances where you recommend a film that I've seen that you haven't, especially one that is pre-2000.
Yeah, very, very true.
It's pretty nutso-butso. I'm gonna relish in this moment.
Yeah, one that has eluded me, and enough people talk about it and such. It's one of the films where that you hear enough people talk about it that you're nervous if you don't like it. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I think so. That's why you avoid watching it.
Know that if you have any negative opinion about it, I will beat you up.
And this is where. So I already kind of have an idea about what your score is,
because you totally know that I can beat you up.
Yeah. Right? So we got Taxi Driver, 1976. Directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader.
Yep.
Starring Robert De Niro as the taxi driver, Travis Bickle. You have Sybil Shepherd as Betsy, Jodie Foster as Iris, Albert Brooks as Tom, the campaign manager, and Peter Boyle as Wizard, and who?
Harvey Keitel
as Matthew,
yep.
Charlie Rain, or Sport.
Hey there, Sport.
Yeah, so it's about it's a character study and a little bit of a character unraveling as we get to live inside the head of Travis Bickle for 2 hours as a honorably discharged military veteran.
You gotta say honorably.
Yeah. And yes, that decides he wants to take up taxi driving because he knows the city. He'll go anywhere, anytime, any part of the day.
Yep. Doesn't sleep too good.
No, he doesn't, and it raises questions about his mental health and possibly PTSD from the war, perhaps. And we just get to ride around with him as he looks at the scum of the city that is New York and wonders how he can fix it. As he dives deeper into isolation, possibly depression, wanting to make change.
I don't know what you're talking about. Travis Bickle is a hero, and I will not have you slander his name. He is such a good person and just wants what's best for the city, you know?
Yeah, not afraid to tell anyone.
You know what? He's a go-getter. He gets shit done. Yeah. He's my type of character. That's why I like him.
Organized.
No, obviously, yes, this is a character study. It focuses on the collapsing mental fortitude of Travis Bickle.
That's and a harsh way of saying that, but true.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And, is admittedly my favorite Scorsese movie. I love these types of movies where it focuses on a character that is very complicated, very well written, kind of makes you get into the mind of that character, and you get to see their day-to-day, their philosophies on life, how they kind of live, how they operate, and the fascination that comes from just watching a sort of downward spiral of sorts, and how they fail to cope with the fact that they are very lonely. They have a lot of issues. There's PTSD there, like you said. And I think this is a great fucking movie. This is one of those movies where it's kind of... And this is only like in circles that I feel like, few people might endeavor into. But it's one of those films that kind of has a reputation. People can view this movie and say that it's a film bro movie. They can kind of write it off as something that...
Yeah, very true.
People who are into that type of movie, it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why do you like this movie? And there are people who can watch this and kind of get the wrong thing from it. They can view Travis as a hero, kind of like what I was joking about earlier. But I feel like this movie has so much going on in terms of the character, the writing, the setting, the style of it. I absolutely love the way that this movie is just made on a technical level. And there's a lot about it that I can't wait to dive into. So I want to get your thoughts, because you, like I said before, are in the rare case where I've seen this movie and you haven't. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Man, I've actually, this thing's kind of marinated for a couple days, and it keeps coming up on more and more fascination with it. Disturbed character. It's I had no idea who or what Travis was. I've seen like the ending.
It's hard to avoid the ending. We alluded to that in the last episode, but it's one of those things that's so ingrained in pop culture that if you're into movies in any way, it's hard to avoid it.
And it's not the very, very ending of it. It's the shootout. So if you guys haven't seen Taxi Driver 2, turn this off, go watch it.
Spoilers.
Because I think it's a film that needs to be in the zeitgeist. At least in your head of movies that you've seen. Yeah, I had no idea about the mental collapse that he was going to have, and as we're going through it, and it's funny because I've seen some scenes of this. I mean, the most I had seen from, I'm trying to think of where it started, because I hadn't seen him going in for the taxi interview, but it was almost like once you get into that first narration, up until the point he courts Sybil Shepherd and brings her to the porno film, and he's like, I just didn't know. I thought that you'd want to go to this. Like, I don't know film, And I'd seen up to that point, so I knew I was kind of getting ready to be uncomfortable for that. And then you just see the collapse of his mind, and it's fascinating.
It's very fascinating.
It's disturbing to an extent because it is so laissez-faire about it. Because he's the narrator, he's an unreliable narrator, and obviously there's nothing wrong with what he's doing, So as we go through this journey with him, as he's just falling into hell, it makes it seem almost normal and casual about what's happening.
There's a weird level of acceptance to the type of person he is, the type of things that he's going through and experiencing.
Yes.
Because the people around him, they either dismiss it as, oh, you just need more sleep, or, oh, you just need to go to a porno theater, whack off.
Yeah.
They're either dismissive or they're equally or more unstable than he is. The scene where Martin Scorsese himself pops into the movie, says the N-word, and pieces out.
Yeah.
But no, where he climbs into the cab and he's, debatably more unhinged than Travis is at that point.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's a great scene, I think that's almost like where it gets flipped in his head. Because after that, he goes to talk to Wizard or Peter Boyle. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I got some bad thoughts, man. I want to do some bad things, Mm-hmm. And I feel like it was after that scene, he thinks he's almost on an opposite trajectory than what Scorsese is, from that conversation. When in all reality, he's almost going down that exact same path.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's a really fascinating watch with what he perceives as being right and just, and what it's ultimately leading to.
Yeah.
And his figure and how he carries himself and his outlook. And it's it was interesting.
A lot of it just has to do with how well De Niro plays it, because he does such a good job of, in that scene specifically with Martin Scorsese, where you read on his face like he's like very averse to like what this guy's saying. You know, the guy in the backseat's being very volatile and like saying a lot of really bad things. But then you also get the sense that Travis is really thinking about what he's saying and kind of applying it to maybe his own situation, kind of taking different aspects of it and applying it to himself of like, oh, I could be like this guy. I could do the things that he's saying. I could do all these things. And then, you know, you get the scene where like he goes up to Peter Boyle, and that scene also tells you so much about his character, and that like, and you get also just many other hints of this throughout the movie as well. But like, it just seems like he has some sort of like developmental, not disability, but like you can tell that he just doesn't really have much education.
That's why they harp on it at the beginning of the film. And I think that's one of the lines that really stick out, at least to me, when they were going through, because it's a really easy exposition scene, and to give you the identity of Travis Bickle himself,
right?
You know, and
you're literally learning about him from the characters verbatim.
But it's not ham-fisted, and it's not done in like a very demeaning way to the audience of like, hey, like go get in the car with your brother, you know. You remember your brother Larry? Sit with him. Like, they just do it like, all right.
He doesn't get a letter from his parents saying, like, Travis, we know that you've had a hard time after the war, but I'm sure you'll be okay living on your own now that you're in the big city. Hopefully your nighttime problems will go away. Like, it's not any bullshit like that.
No, I mean, it's just he goes in there and he's like, I'm going to do the job application. And the guy, like, and I'm like thinking, like, at the time, too, I'm like, well, it's the 70s. They didn't have computers. You might have had to do it right there. You know, you walk in and the guy fills it out for you and looks at you, and you know, and you get all that. But they education. He goes, yeah, I got some.
Yeah.
You know, like,
here
I got
and there.
some. Yeah, here and there.
Here and there.
The guy like looks at him. He's like, and then he just, you know, they sit on it for a little bit. So you get this idea of you got a guy that really, you know, uneducated. You know, coming back from the war, trying to assimilate maybe a little bit and go into the big city, thinking that he can make it big, and then, you know, kind of figuring out, you know, that it's really fun that he doesn't like the city.
Yeah.
I just say, he goes, what are you, I forget, he goes, something, you moonlight? And he goes, well, what's moonlighting? You know?
Yeah, he doesn't know what moonlighting means.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what a lot of things mean. And that's not only just an indication of like his lack of education, but just his lack of understanding human interaction.
Yeah.
Like when he takes Sybil Shepherd to, and you know, we're jumping all over the place here, but when he takes her to the porno theater, not understanding that that's something that she probably doesn't want to do.
They watched the sweetest sex education film. Like, it wasn't even like a porno. Like, they were showing like these are human body parts.
Yeah, this is how you have intercourse. And it's like, you know, but you know, the people go there for a very sinister reason, and it's one of those things where like any quote unquote normal person who could read human emotions and like read social interactions would know that that's not something that you do in any sort of like normal situation, let alone a first date.
Well, and there's that great maybe not contradiction there, but like a great I can't think of the word, but like
contrast.
Yeah, because he goes in there, he goes, I can tell you're a lonely person. I see you every day. And like she actually likes the mystery around him, and that he's actually seeing her for her. You know, like, she's very into him at the first date.
Yeah. Well, Travis doesn't seem like somebody who would also, like, bullshit you either. Like, he seems like one of those people that would, like, kind of tell you what's on his mind, be honest about it at the very least.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't understand anything, then you're going to see that come out. But at the same time, you know, like you said, there's, like, a weird relatability there where, like, he's so lonely that he can see that there's a level of loneliness in her that they can have a connection over.
It's like a funny thing, though, because you wonder, is it that he actually sees it? Because he doesn't read human emotions that well.
No.
Or is it just that he's projecting and that he finds her so...
Oh, there's so much level of projection.
You know what I'm saying? That he finds her so beautiful that he's like, oh, you're in the same boat I am. And it's just because that's how I am. That's how you are. And maybe to a certain extent... I think it's more of the mystery around him that she's drawn to, because she might not be. You never, you know, I couldn't tell you how her character was or if she was feeling that way. But, and so you get that where he totally knocks it out of the park, and it's like she totally into him to the next date, fucking over.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think it's a great contrast of the who he really is too, because we really don't know his audience members. And like, you know, I didn't realize that he knocked it out of the park on the first day. I didn't realize they did all that. I just thought the first one was them going to the porno movie, and like I saw that and I was like, holy shit, how'd you fuck this up?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, oh, he found a way.
Yeah, like, very easily too.
Very fucking easily.
And the worst part is he doesn't know it's wrong.
He's like, what? I thought this is something couples go to. I've seen couples here.
Yeah, I see people here all the time. They go, I thought this was normal. I didn't know. There's
such a level of disconnect that is played so well by Robert De Niro.
And he is so simple. Like, and that's the thing too. Like, you take this. It's almost like kind of like a perfect storm too, because you take this. I mean, he's supposed to be from the Midwest, you know, and you take this simple person from the Midwest that knows a certain level of life, and you thrust him into this unknown environment, and it's
where people are just already volatile.
Yeah.
At this time, New York is in a decline, so like stress levels are very high. Crime is pretty rampant.
Oh, you got everything going on. I mean, it's just, and the gangs are running, or you got the mafia running it, you know, and there's just so much shit going on that it's like you literally have to be like, you have to be, an alley cat. Like, you got to be on top of your game. With
you kind of have to be a little unhinged in order to survive New York at that time.
Well, dude, like you're in an environment, like if you're thinking about predators, like you are living in the jungle. Mm-hmm. You know, like everyone's a predator at that stage. Like you can, and if you're observing other people and you're missing out on like why their actions are their actions, like you will get eaten up. And that's why he was so far completely out of his fucking realm.
Yeah.
You know, and he can't relate to anyone. He doesn't find anyone in the military. He doesn't know how to hold a conversation. You know, like you just see him just start just dissenting.
There's not one conversation in this that he has, maybe except for like the store clerk after he shoots the guy, where like it doesn't feel like things are going smoothly or that he's in control of the conversation. Like, it always feels like he just has no idea how to carry himself, how to articulate himself.
Yeah.
He wants to have the confidence to say that, he's going to be the one to clean the streets and to like save the city. But at the same time, when he starts speaking in front of somebody, he just can't like carry himself that well.
Well, it makes you wonder if he knows that there's a level of wrongness, or maybe he just is, like you said, insecurity, or not.
Well, there's also like an insincerity about like his viewpoints on the city itself too, because like that quote that I read earlier,
he even
fucks it up when he's like writing it in the journal to himself. Listen, you fuckers, you scumbags, and then he like stumbles and has to start out. Like he's not even 100% sure of like why he feels the way he feels, but he just knows that he feels so lonely and isolated that, it must be because of this. It must be because the city is like this, so therefore I have to take it out on something. He
might not know he even feels that way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
There's like such a level of delusion there.
Yeah, like he's just like everything's normal, and then, it's funny that you say that, because I think watching it, that's when I was like unreliable narrator. It's a great scene because I think he's reading it out loud while he's doing his gun stuff, and there's an actual, like, when he starts it over, there's a quick edit in the film.
You can see it like kind of loops back a little bit.
Yeah. And I was like, that was interesting.
It's jarring, but it fits so well with like the monologue and how he starts over.
Yeah, it's a little creepy, and that's when you get into, we are living inside his head. Like everything that's been going on has been what he's seen. So who knows? Maybe even the scene with Sybil Shepherd, like he thought that that's how well the first date went, that's why the second date arose. I don't know. Yeah, dude. This thing, and the unfortunate thing about it is there will never be a movie shot like this. The grittiness of New York, and especially at what was going on,
it's depicted so well
during the time. Did you read about like?
I read about how, and I think I might have included it in some of my notes, but at the time, New York as a city was on the verge of bankruptcy, so there were lots of desolate buildings.
There was a garbage strike. That's why
there was a garbage strike too.
There's trash mounted up everywhere. Yeah, like you said, the city's going bankrupt. They can't pay the fucking workers to take out trash.
So at the time of filming, it just happened to work out that so many locations in New York just looked like literal garbage.
Yeah.
For Scorsese to shoot his film in, to where like he's really capturing like just the messiness and the grime and the filth of this city. And it really speaks volumes to how well it matches up with like the narrative going. It's like, it's kind of like a perfect storm of like what was supposed to happen with this movie. Like the actors took pay cuts to make this movie the way it was, they wanted it to be made. The city was in such a state to where like it totally matched the tone of what the movie wanted to go for, and it's just a perfect storm of everything coming together and working out so well the way it does.
Yeah. It's remarkable. And I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again.
I want to bring this up because it kind of gives you a perspective of my experience with this movie. So I had seen Joker before I watched this movie. And Joker, when I first saw it, and I've rewatched it a few times since then, but I don't think I've seen Joker since I've watched Taxi Driver for the first time. And Joker's one of those movies where I experienced it, I really liked it, I connected with it. It's one of those things where like there's so much about it that I really think I'm a huge fan of when it comes to movies like that, where like, oh, there's a lot going on here, there's so many different things that it's doing. And then I come across Taxi Driver and I think to myself, shit, like you can see all the DNA from Taxi Driver when you watch Joker. Like there's so much going on in Joker that I like, and then I watch this movie and I realize almost all the things I like about Joker are just in this movie, and I think done in, to me, almost like a more satisfying way. Because, like, obviously Joker takes a lot of inspiration from Taxi Driver, It's set in the same time period. It's also about, like, this lonely, isolated guy. He kind of, like, takes matters into his own hands, very mentally ill, takes it out on people.
Yep.
And this movie, the pacing's really great. The way it handles itself is very well. Yeah, there's just, I don't know. It's one of those where like it almost feels overwhelming to discuss it because I want to talk about everything, but then at the same time, it's like I don't know how to dive quite into it.
I mean, we got bits and pieces of it, and
100%.
I think you had to have the realistic element of it to see what he was going through, to provide some of the belief or the realism behind this unreliable narrator. So like if New York's clean, or you got New York that it looks like, nowadays, like it's kind of like an unrealistic element of where you're at and what you're going through in the time. But because of everything that was going on, it's almost a character unto itself. I mean, like you're almost in like whatever the seventh circle of hell, or you're almost like in a certain like Gotham City. Like it's almost like this evil world that you're living in, and you're looking around and you see all the villains around you, and it does it in such a great job that it's believable up to a certain point.
It's almost like he's in hell at certain points.
Well, in hell, but also he's got to be the guy that rises above. Like he's got to do something impactful to say, like, to get the city, not to say right the ship. I mean, he's not going to do anything that crazy, but like there's got to be something where he conquers something to kind of bring the back to maybe where it was, or get away from the streets, and we get to see a little bit better part of the town, or and that's, I mean, the locations that they shoot at and everything going on, and the bustling of the city and these people walking around, and you just get to see just really, and not everyone's bad, but you get a lot of just a real world look at what's going on. And they won't ever capture that. And then to couple it with the score of the film, dude, I fucking love the music in this thing.
Music's great. It's got a very like noirish tone to it.
Yeah.
But there's like something really off kilter about it. Makes it feel like very in line with the tone of the movie.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great way with the jazz that just plays through this thing, but it's a little distilted or disoriented.
There's like the drums that go, it kind of almost gives it like a very militaristic feel at points.
Yeah.
Reminds you that he was in the military. There's like a sense of duty that he's doing when he's doing the actions that he's performing.
I always took it as like his beliefs getting ramped up. Like when he's going through, you just like when the jazz is playing, like you get this very insomniac, or him having insomnia, but that vibe that he's just going through the motions, and we're living in this malaise of a world that he's just soaking in. And then you get the drums and everything. Like when it starts kicking in, yeah, like duty. You know, like he's got all of a sudden he's got some sort of self again that he's got to perform or he's got to do something. And the soundtrack or the score of this thing really plays well into how his emotions are going. And that's what I was talking about with Maestro. I wish they would have incorporated more into that with what he was going through, because that would have helped out with the audience on what he's feeling.
Yeah.
Because in this one, and it's very tastefully done. It's not beaten over the head, and like a lot of, and I don't know if there's changes or if they keep playing the same tone over and over again with that little jazz, and I don't know if there's some differences in it, but like it accompanies it really well. Mm-hmm.
It's such a good juxtaposition of how Travis views himself in the situation versus what we're observing as the viewer of the movie, because the way he sees it is that he's so enamored with this sense of duty. It's almost like he kind of gave himself a sense of purpose, where he starts buying the guns, he rigs all that shit up in like his jacket and his arm, like the whole sliding mechanism thing, and he's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to clean up the streets. I'm going to make an impact. But it's so misguided, and even he doesn't even fully understand what that impact or what that sense of duty is. And so therefore it's just very warped, and you just see the darkness of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I'm just like fascinated by. And I really wanted to watch this movie with Megan to get her thoughts on it too, but she was sick at the time, so I don't know. But this is one that I'm definitely going to throw on again in the near future, I would say.
Yeah.
Especially this viewing specifically, I think I liked it more than the first time. And the first time I already really loved it. Yeah. But this time it really just cemented the fact that this is my favorite Scorsese out of all that I've seen.
Yeah. I don't know about I don't know if I'd say favorite. This one is this thing is like really well done, Especially for a movie that was made in 1976 where and this is just me making kind of an assumption, and maybe you can kind of back me up on this, but in a time period where mental health and talking about the difficulties with that really wasn't a thing being discussed. So I'm glad it wasn't. Mental health still isn't. Like, we've just now gotten to the point where mental health is like, treat it like your body.
Right. Like within the last like maybe decade, right?
Yeah, decade, yeah. I was about to say, like I'm thinking like 10, 15 years, maybe. Like I'm thinking like almost as like 5 years ago. Like you really started throwing like therapy and counseling and all that shit was like, and I don't mean shit, I'm just saying like all the things that go in with it, it's almost a stigma. Like if you can't control your brain, what else can't you control?
Like if you have a mental illness, it's something that you should be easily able to figure out yourself.
Dude, when they came back from Vietnam, shell shock was referred to as like, and people from World War II is just like, you took one too many to the head, you're just going to be seeing, you'll be seeing ghosts. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's whatever, and that's why a lot of those people struggle, and the VA is probably so poorly underfunded. It's because it never got the proper treatment that it needed. And as a society and, with Western medicine going on and stuff, it's just one of the things that science will eventually catch up, because you have to look at so many other facets of what's going on. A lot of people don't believe in, the brain having different parts of it, and different. So anyways, but Paul Schrader, did you read anything on him?
I read a little bit about how he wrote the screenplay. He was in a hospital because he was he was homeless at the time, sleeping in his car. So I don't remember too much of why he ended up in the hospital.
I read about it. He went to Hollywood, right? He had a wife that he divorced.
Paul Schrader, and I'm just going to throw this in there since we're talking about him, grew up in Grand Rapids. Was born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Boy, that's why they gave him a Midwestern accent. I didn't realize that he was a Midwestern. Like, Travis Bickle was supposed to be from the Midwest.
Yeah. Apparently, De Niro went and spent time with some Midwestern soldiers to kind of gather how they would sound, Yeah.
I was like, man, we're being studied.
We're being looked at through a glass lens by the Italian actors.
But anyways, so Schrader went out he was in Hollywood. He divorced his wife. He broke up with the lady that he left his wife for.
Yeah.
He was squatting at her place until she booted him out. He left the AFI, the American Film Institute, and he had a shit ton of debt. So he was wandering the streets. He became a drunk. He said he'd sleep till like 5, 6 o'clock and then go out and get hammered. And it wasn't until he got an ulcer. That's why he went to the hospital. And he wrote the script based on his experiences of being, in that life. And really, he thought there's an interesting contrast as the unaware self meets like the aware self, and like what you drift into and what you're not necessarily paying attention to kind of dumb it down.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least for me. And that's where a lot of the passion comes from, and obviously there's some more liberties taken, but I don't think there was a whole lot of changes to the script or anything like that. A couple
he added
improvs.
the Vietnam aspect of it, the fact that he's a Vietnam vet.
I think he wanted to have PTSD play a little bit more so, and
gives it another layer to add to his mental state.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you are you familiar with Paul Schrader's other movies?
He's worked with Scorsese on some other ones.
I think he did the one with Nicolas Cage, Bringing Out the Dead. I think it's called.
In '99, he did.
He wrote Raging Bull.
Yes,
and then Paul Schrader's directed his own movies too.
He also wrote The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only other movie that I've seen that he's both written and directed is First Reformed.
With Ethan Hawke?
Ethan Hawke. Very kind of similar DNA to Taxi Driver.
I think that this is kind of his
it's very much
style.
in his wheelhouse. Yeah. He's got a shtick.
Yes.
He's got a bit of a shtick.
That's what I kind of picked up on when I was reading some of his.
I've heard the card counter is very similar that way.
Oh, yeah?
With Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
Which, I'll check that out probably in the future so I can report back. But yeah, I really like the way this is written. And it's fascinating to learn that that's how it was written from his perspective.
Yes, that's what I said too. And I was like, man, wow, you talk about, and he just handed it to his agent. It's like, here you go. It's like, see if you can buy someone. But when you talk about films getting made and just having a bit of luck, I mean, all this shit, it sounds like everything that we're talking about is like, man, that luck, So
everything coming together, it's the perfect storm.
And well directed though. It's not like Scorsese's just lucky that he made this film. I mean, he definitely he's got a very, in this thing at least, tastefully done shots that don't say look at me, but also enough to kind of give you like as an audience member that we're drifting here, swaying here, like the editing choice, him on the phone when they start peering off down the hallway, when Bickle's in the room and they start panning up from the ceiling shot looking down, You're
saying that his biggest contribution to the movie isn't when he pops in, says the N-word, and then leaves?
No,
that's not it.
I guess he had to sit on a couple blankets so he could see above the seat.
Yeah, he's kind of a short king. But no, I completely agree with you. I was thinking about those too, just how well filmed it was, and like the different creative choices going into like the camera movements and the POV. They had to get rid of the ceiling in that apartment so that they could have that like God's eye view when the whole shootout's done and it's like panning through everything and the cops are standing there. I really love those choices, and it really makes it feel not only like it's very artfully done and kind of like almost an art house movie, but it just gives it that timeless aspect too. Like this is a movie that has aged so well and was very ahead of its time, not with just like the filmmaking, but the subject matter, the attention to detail, the idea behind mental illness and that being addressed in the absolute wrong ways at that time period.
Or not at all.
Or just not at all.
I was about to say, I mean, Travis Bickle approached it the wrong way. Other than that, no one really talked about it or even gave him the light of day. Yeah.
Right. And even when he tried to seek help out from someone that he maybe called a friend, they were like, just sleep it off.
It was, so that conversation, like that to me, I that was probably my favorite part of the movie.
I like that part a lot.
Is when he goes out and he finally works up the courage
to Wizard
to ask Wizard, hey, like, and then Wizard tries to give him some help. And Wizard doesn't know because, like you said, I mean, if you're looking at mental illness, he doesn't know what's going on.
Wizard seems like someone who's very comfortable in his life that really doesn't have that many problems.
I was thinking about Sam's Club and couple people over there that that's like if you had that conversation with that's the answer you'd get from them.
Yeah.
It was like, hey man,
very content with their lot in life.
Yeah, this is it for me.
He's been a cabbie for 17 years.
Yeah, and I know the streets, I know what to do, I know where to go, and when they do the thing, they just put it right on traffic because I don't know, I got a lot of bad ideas creeping up there, man. I don't, I want to do some bad things. And Wizard's instead of you okay? It's just hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You'll be all right. You're young. Go get laid.
Maybe a bit of a misguided idea of hey, you just need to just do what I do. Just, go get some puss or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever they say.
Yeah. Those crazy kids.
I do really like Peter Boyle in that scene. And the only other thing that I've seen him in besides Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed is Everybody Loves Raymond. He plays Frank on that show.
He's also in...
it's interesting to see him in a movie 4 decades before that show, and he's still bald AF.
Oh, yeah. He's got the really clown hair going.
It looks really goofy.
The bowl cut, yeah, which doesn't he have long hair
it's
too?
It's long, and it's very stringy. It looks like if you held clothing to it, it would just stick because of the static.
Yeah. It could be the humidity and I guess there was a heat wave at the time of filming, so
it looks like it's made of doll's hair.
Oh yeah, God knows what those guys went through to make this thing.
I liked him in the movie. The few scenes we get of him.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. It gives me a new perspective on him as an actor.
Do you? And maybe you can help me out here. Do you think the plot line with the senator is warranted?
I think so.
Yeah.
It tells a lot about him as a character because you could easily see his plot line with Jodie Foster and him wanting to rescue her as okay, that's a pretty noble thing that he wants to do. It kind of feels like it's coming from a genuine place, but then you juxtapose it with his intentions of murdering the senator.
Yeah.
And it's okay, that's not just coming from a place of righteousness. He kind of just wants to do it so he can shoot people. And him going after the senator is that idea of it could have gone one way, it could have gone the other way. If he had shot the senator, people would paint him as a villain. He would be viewed the same way that John Wilkes Booth is viewed. And, there's some interesting implications with this movie and assassinating presidents as well, which we can get to later.
Well,
but because that doesn't work out for him, it just so happens that he can take it out on people that most of the population views as scum of the earth. So then people view him as a hero because of his actions. It could have easily gone one way or the other, and I don't think Travis mentally, emotionally, in that situation would have felt different about either of them.
So I guess yeah, I that part I do understand. I guess it's more so of, do we attribute him wanting to kill the senator as an act of righteousness, or is it strictly to paint the picture of how mentally ill Travis is at the time, that's why he wants to do it? Because there isn't anything that comes out to me, at least through the dialogue or scenes of the film, that would want him to eliminate the senator.
The only thing I can think of, and this is a very small thing, and it almost kind of goes against the idea that Travis can't read people, is the scene where the senator gets into the cab and they start talking to each other, and the senator asks him what's your opinion on this city or something like that, and Travis
goes, what would you change? What do you want? What would you change with America?
Right. And then Travis goes on this long tirade about someone needs to come in here and clean up these streets, get rid of this scum, this scum is no good, blah blah blah, and it kind of puts the senator off.
Oh yeah.
And
kind of puts the senator off.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I was like, all right, man, don't lay it all on the table.
You were hiding behind the couch while he's going on this tirade.
Yeah.
But there's that moment where the senator leaves the cab with his two buddies, his constituents or whatever. And they go in the hotel and they kind of like look back a little bit at him. They have like a little bit of an interaction that you can't hear, but then you cut to Travis and he's kind of got this expression on his face like he knows that interaction didn't feel right. He knows that there was something there that just didn't have the correct energy he wanted it to. So then maybe you can gather in your mind, like, he knows that the senator isn't taking him seriously. He knows that the senator is somebody who isn't really listening to him. So then there's like a weird personal vendetta there that maybe motivates his desire to shoot him specifically. But then again, like I said, it kind of goes against the idea that Travis can't read people. And I don't know how much of that I want to read into when we're already kind of justifiably shown that Travis's mental fortitude is just going to the point where, like, there's not really much of a rationale there anyway.
Right.
Like, he could just shoot him because he just wants to shoot somebody. And he could totally use the idea that he's doing it for a righteous reason.
See, that's the other. There's two points there. So one, I that was the only one that really was throwing me off was the whole senator thing. The one that to me I read into is he said we are the people, and his whole
we are the people.
Yeah, not
these buttons say we are the people.
Yeah, do you hear the difference with how I say it? All right, we'll just do this.
I'm not paying for these buttons.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
We don't pay you, and we'll throw them away.
Yeah.
And now you give us and underline the R. We are the people.
We need a whole movie where he's negotiating campaign merchandise.
I felt like Albert Brooks in this thing was the only one that felt off. Well, so hold on. Before we get to Albert Brooks and my whole, like, it's not even like a big thing. We are the people. I kept like going back into like, oh, he views the senator as a representation of the scum of New York since we are the people, implying me and you, right? So that's why it was a little bit of a stretch for me, but I guess behind the guides of mental illness, you can really paint it in any picture you want. And I bet you there are probably some really good things out there about why he wanted to do it outside of, because I don't disagree with you.
Right.
And I do find if we're trying to say like he can't read like people's emotions or their body language, that's a hard one. But there is when he walks away out of that cab, the guy does look back at him, and it's a weird look he gives him too. Because when I me watching, I'm like, all right, is he like buying into this thing, or is he like, that guy was uniquely fascinating, or is he like, Jesus Christ, we have to like make sure we keep tabs on him? It's a weird one. And like De Niro, you can see like looking back at him, like doesn't know how that conversation went at all.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if there's some like hope in his face where it's like, man, that might have got to him, because like I stand up for what I believe in, and that's right.
Yeah. Or maybe there's also too, and this is something that I didn't think about until now, maybe it's not even something that we're explicitly shown or told in the movie. Maybe through Travis's weird mental gymnastics that he makes, looks at the senator and sees how he's trying so hard to relate himself to the people that are going to vote for him, but then kind of sees through the bullshit almost in that, okay, you're a senator, you're rich as fuck, you're going to this nice hotel, you're paying lots of money to stay here, you're making lots of money. There's like a disconnect between this. You're not really who you say you are. You're a big phony.
Yeah. And the simplest way, because that was like an educated thought on it.
Right.
So it's
that's something that that's one that you kind of have to like
read through the line.
Yeah. Kind of like come to that own conclusion yourself. And like there's one of the things I love about this movie, there's so many different things it could be, right?
Well, and that's the thing, when you talk about an unreliable narrator, I'm thinking like if you ever write a film, just do it that way, because it could be so subjective in so many different ways. You know, it's not to say easy way, but there's a lot of things that you can touch on, but without a lot of clarity on what's going on, and you can fall back on. You just don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, it's also specific enough still too, where like that character is played so well by De Niro. It's so well written. Like it feels like you could meet somebody like Travis Bickle, and it's kind of alarming. It reminds you that like people exist like this out there.
Oh, well, I mean, not to say it in a bad way, but yeah, I mean, it's just
right.
It's your own world that you create. I mean, it's like one of the, I don't remember what movie it is, but like, and I don't know if I said it out loud or not, but like, it's one of those things where everything that you take in through your eyes is all your own perspective.
Yeah.
So like the fantasies that you can create too with what you see, you can make that into your own world. And then like you kind of get into like, man, like how crazy is that? Where you can lose some of that grounded sense of reality.
Yeah.
And in this film, he does it incredibly well. And yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of what he's going through and a lot of what's happening, it's a very uneasy feeling throughout the film, but not enough to make you feel maybe uncomfortable, but nothing like I think of Funny Games, where that one people like hair on the back of your neck sticking up. Like this is like a very like something feels off and like something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But even when they get to the end of it and what he does, it's not. I mean, it's. I don't want to say awful, but like
it's not triumphant in the sense that like a superhero movie would have the hero defeat the villain and everybody feels good about it. Like he does something, you could argue is a good thing. Like he gets rid of people who are abusing children. You can absolutely say 100%, right? But
yeah,
the way
we're saying, but take like a justice view approach of it. Don't go in there start assassinating people. But yeah,
I'm not telling people to do that. Don't take that at all. But
there's something noble in what he's doing. There's a sense
you could see the good in it. You could see the the I don't want to say justification, but like you understand it, right? Like.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent.
But then you watch the scene and you're still kind of horrified at what he's doing because the way it's framed, the way it's shot, the way, his intentions are coming from, like, it still makes you feel uneasy about it.
Yeah, I got like, cause I'm trying to think, like, when we got to that point, I was thinking, like, what really separates him from these other people? Mm-hmm. Like, the first time that when I kind of, I guess when the uneasiness, not to say went away, but like, and I was like, all right, like we're heading down like a bad path here, and like I was ready for it. He goes in the store and shoots the shoplifter.
Yeah.
Which totally merited, but then again, it's like under the guides, like the system that we have, you shouldn't have had the gun. You should have been able to do that. Now, given with what he was carrying at the time, the resources he had, it's like you made the right decision, you'd think, right? Because obviously shoplifting's bad, and he took out a bad guy. But like at the same token, really, you shouldn't have anything at all with with what's going on. Like
no.
It technically should have been helpless in that scenario, right?
Technically, and like you could also argue that like if he didn't do anything, maybe the guy would have just like gotten the money and left. Like nobody would have been harmed.
Yeah. Or he could have did something differently, like snuck up on the guy because he was behind him and the guy didn't see.
Just held the gun to his head, have him drop his gun, call the police, have them take the guy away.
Yeah. So like. And that's where we get into that.
You can make a lot of arguments that like that guy didn't need to die.
Right. But it's also under the same, you look at it and say that's a bad dude. Mm-hmm. And he got what was coming. Right. And that's where you get to with everything that was going on in the pimp house. It's like, yeah, those are bad guys. And like I can see what they had coming, but under the same token with the rules that we have and the system that we have, is it noble or is it right, or where are we falling in line? And that's when I got into like, oh, he is like he thinks he's one thing, but he's turning into the other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why but it's once again, I mean, in most of these good movies too, you put in some philosophical like kind of quandaries or ponderments here of like,
yeah,
what is right? What is wrong? Is that good? Is that bad? Like,
to me, it doesn't feel like he's like necessarily being a full force of good. It almost just feels like he's being a force of violence in that scene.
And I think that's what they're playing up to. Mm-hmm. I heard you say like he just wants to shoot someone. Because I lean on it the other way. I don't know if it was necessarily just wants to shoot someone. I think he wanted to make change. Like he wanted to do something heroic because he does shoot someone in the film. So like if that was his itch, unless he's not like turning it into like, but if he was like a werewolf, like bloodthirsty, like I like, oh, that felt good. I need to do more of that.
Yeah,
which he totally could have too.
He totally could have, and it is one of those things where like, not to like say that he just wanted to shoot somebody for the sake of shooting somebody, but the fact that he could like justify any case of it in his mind as like him doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that scene specifically some more. Obviously, it being like the climax of the movie, it's like the most famous out of this film, you could argue, outside of the "you talking to me" speech that he gives in the mirror.
Yeah.
That scene, and I'm sure like some people who are really into this movie already know this, but they had to darken the colors to make it an R-rated movie and not an NC-17. Because
the blood and the gore.
The MPAA was worried that it was going to be too realistic looking, so they darkened the colors to make it so that it didn't look exactly like real blood. But I really like that decision, and Martin Scorsese says that he likes the way it turned out, even darker than most of the other instances in this movie, because like it separates that scene kind of and isolates it in a way where like that really feels like it's kind of on its own in its own dark little instance, and it just to me looks cooler. The fact that like it's just the way it's dark.
Nice critic approach on that.
I know it looks so cool the way he shoots them. But no, it like goes in line with like the actions that are taking place.
Yeah.
Like this is the darkest that Travis Bickle ever gets in the movie,
100%.
so therefore the visuals being dark really match that.
I didn't even pick up on that. That's a fun little tidbit because I was really, I mean, with the way that the movie shot, man, it's just being at night and stuff. There's always like it felt like the color schemes were always different because they were using almost like natural lighting.
Yeah,
throughout the film. So, but that's interesting.
A lot of the use of like the nightlife and like the different neon signs and everything, like including the title opener, like that looks really good. But yeah, I just love the way that scene is shot and the visuals of it and how it turned out.
It's funny that they're like a realistic, because I think that was like the only thing that felt outdated in the film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it almost kind of gives it like I don't want to say otherworldly, but there's almost like a dream-like quality to it in a way, especially with like the way things are like kind of going slower, the different like kind of editing choices and like the dark colors of it itself. It almost feels like it couldn't be real sometimes. Like is this happening in his head or is this actually taking place?
Yeah.
And it's one of those pieces of doubt that to me doesn't even like let up in the last scene of the movie where like, is this actually taking place?
Which is another fun thing, because I didn't realize that this had a very big discussion on it.
Yeah, there's like a bit of a surrealist element to it, especially with the ending.
We got to the ending, and Jasmine, she watched a little bit of it with me. She might have napped, but I completely thought that after that shooting, everything else was a dream. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that there's arguments for and against it.
Yeah. Yeah, you could take the stance that he actually committed the violence, but then he was successful in shooting himself, and then everything that comes after is like a dream or a hallucination or
I just did it as soon as I was like, he's arrested and he's just making all this up in his head as we kind of enter the last little thoughts that he have before the movie ends. Like, yeah,
I love the idea, and this is kind of my viewpoint of it, is that like it all happens, it all takes place. He actually gets the letter from her parents, she's actually back with them and she's okay. And then he just returns to being a taxi driver, drives Betsy to her place. And then there's that scene at the end where he has that little like kind of paranoid moment looking in the rearview mirror and like turns it away. That to me, and this is like other people's interpretations too, so I'm not alone in this, is him not really coming out of this a different person. Like,
that's another great, yeah.
It's one of those things where like he's going to do the same thing again. Mm-hmm. He's going to keep being the same person. He's not getting better. You could argue that he's getting worse, and it's only going to keep going downhill from there.
Yeah. There's so many different ways you could interpret this. As soon as I don't, yeah, and it makes you wonder too. I mean, if he made it to the hospital or if he died on that couch.
Let's talk about, there's a couple things I want to talk about before we wrap up, and this is going to be a longer conversation.
Sorry, it's earned the right.
It's earned the right, I would say. I want to talk about Jodie Foster, and I want to get your thoughts on her. Because there was a bit of a controversy around her casting as a 12-year-old prostitute.
Yeah.
But I think she does a great job in this movie. I think that her acting's great, and she fits very well within the environment, the world, and the story, in my opinion.
She did a great job. There was
especially for a child actress too.
I read somewhere that there was a prostitute that Martin Scorsese was
friends with.
Yeah, well, it was
hey,
like
pal.
doing like finding someone for the character to study, right? Like so for Jodie Foster to kind of, and I think her name Garth or something like that. I can't remember the prostitute's name, but anyways, she was a heroin addict, right? And so when she was trying to come on like I think it said squeam. At first I thought I was like, oh, she's recovering. Now that I think about it, it's like, oh no, she just needed a fix and had to hold off on getting her fix.
Yeah.
She would put sugar on her on her toast, and that's what you'd watch Jodie Foster when she's eating the toast. She takes some sugar and she starts dumping it on the toast.
I did think about that, but I chalked it up as to like her being a kid and liking sugar.
So what it was Jodie Foster was studying this prostitute and like just being very observant. That when they would go and get food and stuff, and she had to hold off on her fix, she would do that. So Jodie Foster, thinking that's what hookers do, did that with their toast. Just not even like. That's it's not part of the character. Yeah, it's just her like being observant, and being 12, and being like, well, that's if she's doing that, then that's probably what everyone does. No, she did. She was great. She was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a little
that scene where they're getting breakfast is like my favorite that she's in that movie.
It's yeah. The one that I liked is the dance. And it's just because of how fucking weird it is and how cynical people are, and it really it almost gives, like you said, I mean, it feels almost noble or like justified for what Travis is about to do.
Yeah.
You got Sport in here who's totally taking advantage of a
I always forget that that's Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
I always forget that that's him. And
then two, like he totally brainwashes her, and you just see how sick it, like how truly nasty that side of the world is.
Yeah.
That it's all about money to him and him just being a player and like, listen, you're my favorite. And then, yeah, it was gross. It's really, I guess
it's pretty visceral.
Controversial, maybe. Like, I'm trying to think of the right word of like.
Yeah, and there's some controversy at the time of like her casting and like her character and her involvement in the story. And like also, the end scene with the violence, people were unhappy about
her being a part of it,
her being in that scene.
It. Yeah, yeah.
Which I feel like nowadays that wouldn't be too much of an issue. You see like an R-rated movie with kids in it, and like they see people getting shot all the time. But back then, it's a little more telling like where people's thoughts were of that subject matter.
Well, you got the MPA, and they're trying to protect everyone's eyes from seeing too many hard things. So.
Yeah, emphasis on the hard.
Yeah, she did a good job. I liked her. I mean, and it just it adds more layers to the story, and it really, I mean, it puts you in these kind of, maybe paradox, just contradictions. Like I keep thinking, like there's one way to feel about it, and there's one way to think about it, and it's a very mixed emotion of what to do, what's right and what's wrong. And it's just, and I mean, and we're totally basing it off a dude that's just not there with his head.
True. Which very unreliable.
Yeah, which is really just funny to even think about. It's like, man, we're going off all this, so God knows what he was saying, if that's actually it.
We're trusting his perspective on everything we're seeing in this movie.
Yeah.
Which is maybe something we shouldn't be doing 100%.
Yeah.
But,
it's fun.
Comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And then I know you wanted to bring up Albert Brooks. I
thought his humor in this thing is the only thing that I really was just like, why?
I think it's kind of, to me, it was sort of meant to be dumb and cheesy and unfunny. Like he's kind of meant to be a little dorky, but I don't know. I didn't have too much of an issue with him.
No, it's not like too much of an issue. It's just I thought he had better lines in this thing, and then I watched it, so I was like, yeah, not my style. And I was like, I don't, and he's a comedian, so I mean, it's like at the time, like I wonder if that was the style of humor.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. When movies, like when I see something get taken out because it's of the time, and it takes me out because now I'm thinking about, was this really what it was like? And this is what stand-up in New York was like. Throws me off, and it makes me a little upset. But no, outside of that, I mean, he was, everyone, acting wise in this, everyone was fantastic.
I agree. The only thing that really took me out of this movie, the only thing, and it's so minor, is you can tell that they had to either reshoot some scenes or pick up some scenes that they hadn't filmed yet after he had shaved his head and like kind of had his hair grow back a little bit. I don't know if you noticed it too, where so throughout this, like I said, super fucking minor. I'm getting very nitpicky. Not really changing my rating from it at all, but I have to point it out.
That would be a bad one to be like, De Niro's head.
It'd be fucking petty, right? It'd be super petty.
Petty, or I would just wonder, like, all right, how else are you rating movies? Like,
right.
If you're focused on a guy's haircut at a certain point.
I have to bring it up, though, because I did notice it. Travis throughout the movie, for the most part, has like pretty normal length hair. It's a little bit longer. It kind of like flows a little bit. He can comb it, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, he shaves it into the mohawk, and you see that in the shootout, and that's kind of how it is until like he's released from the hospital, and then his hair's normal again. There's a couple scenes specifically when he like keeps returning back to the outdoor campaign where the senator is, like they're having like the rally or whatever. He shows up and he's got this like, his hair for the most part is like closer to how his hair is normally in the film, except I can tell that it's cut shorter. And I feel like, to me, I could easily tell that those scenes were probably filmed after he shaved his head and had his hair regrow back, but it wasn't like quite at the length it was when he was filming most of this movie. Right? Like, I don't know. I just noticed it a lot this time, and maybe I'm fucking crazy. I don't know, but
I wouldn't say crazy. It's just a weird nitpick to pick up on.
Well, it's a nitpick to pick up on because I would notice it every time. I would notice it every time his hair was like that, and I could see that it was like slightly shorter than when it normally was throughout most of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
like I said, it's not affecting my rating. I acknowledge that it's nitpicky, right? But I have to point it out. And I feel like maybe if you watch this again, you'll notice it too, and I won't look like such a fucking lunatic right now.
But I mean, like I don't know. The nitpicky things that I pick out, I don't necessarily think are based on. And I was involved with the story, so this is the second time you've seen it. So usually eyes wander around a little bit more. That's why I'm kind of like maybe on a second viewing I would, but I don't think so, because like Andy Dufresne said in Shawshank, how often do you look at a man's shoes? How often do you look at a man's hair?
Apparently, I look at it too much.
Yeah. Well, like I said, though, it's your second time seeing it. I that's why I'm not trying to go too hard. I'm like, man, that's lunatic. But like, eyes wander. Like, I'm trying to think. I was watching another movie for second or third time. I remember what Inglourious Bastards I had on. Yeah. And it's all right. I know what's going on. I know the lines. Let me look around to see the set. Let's look around to see if there's anyone like scratching their ass. Or if there's something that's going to take me out of it. So I definitely see it. It's just a funny...
That literally, like I said...
Never heard anyone ever say they picked up on a reshoot hairstyle.
That's literally the only thing. The only thing. That's like really the
I feel
soul,
like you're trying really hard to justify like this isn't that bad of this is the only thing I don't like about the film.
I'm trying really hard to justify not looking insane right now.
Yeah. I gave you the grace, not to say like it's all on me, but I think there's grace with the second viewing because there's more that you pick up on.
Maybe I'm shouting into the sky. I don't know. But
well, I mean, like, dude, if I turn this thing on, I'm like, yeah, man, like, no, it was down like 2-3 inches.
You're like, 8 out of 10 now.
Yeah.
It was out of 10, but
I'm just glad you had the disclaimer. This isn't affecting my rating.
I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, like I wonder if Kyle knocked this down a full star because of the reshoot haircut.
I had to throw that in there so I knew you wouldn't throw your water bottle at me. Yeah. I think we're kind of getting towards the end of this discussion, but I kind of want to go through my notes just to make sure there's nothing I missed.
I only got one fun tidbit, and that might lead into the questions.
So this is De Niro and Scorsese reuniting after Mean Streets. We touched on Paul Schrader. Chris Christopherson is mentioned by Betsy to Travis. Chris Christopherson was in Scorsese's previous film, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. So it's kind of like a little Easter egg thing that he threw in. Casting Jodie Foster was controversial. I'm going to bring this up. We don't have to talk about it too much. Partially inspired John Hinckley Jr. to try and assassinate Ronald Reagan. Hinckley Jr. had a fascination with Jodie Foster.
Oh, I didn't know the Foster. I knew about the Reagan part.
Yep. I don't know the whole story. I know that he got a hold of Jodie Foster's phone number one time, and he called her, and she picked up. And he started talking to her, and she thought it was like a prank call or like that he was being so ridiculous that she started laughing at him. And then that kind of like really motivated him to do what he did.
Taxi Driver Reagan.
Taxi Driver, Reagan, Jodie Foster, and I think I might be misremembering this, but Catcher in the Rye might have told him to shoot Ronald Reagan. I don't know.
Okay.
This was Boone.
Good thing it wasn't his cat.
Right.
Or dog.
Yeah. It was just the president of the United States.
No, I'm saying like Summer of Sam. His dog talked to him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
gotcha.
that's what I'm saying. I'm glad it. Those normal thoughts.
I wasn't sure what you meant there.
You read a book, and it's like, oh, that told me to kill the president, not like, my
Kill
turtle.
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
This was booed at Cannes for graphic violence.
Yep.
Scorsese changed the color of the grading of the last film, last shootout. Yep. Bickle's mohawk meant he was ready to go into battle, was a sign recognized by Vietnam War vets that they were ready to kill.
Oh.
So that was a thing where I think Scorsese consulted a Vietnam War vet on set who told him that if someone had a mohawk or they shaved their head into a mohawk, that meant that they were ready to kill someone.
Oh, okay.
And so he kind of like took inspiration and applied it to his character.
That's nice, because I asked Jasmine watching, I was like, I just don't know why. I was like, maybe character transformation to show like he's finally reached that level, but that's a fun one.
Yeah. And then that was the last one I had that we already, that we didn't touch on already.
Oh, yeah. I had Paul Schrader. One fun thing that I found out that, eventually, it could be my listener question. This was going to be turned into a video game. There's a trailer out. That's how far they got. It looks like a rock star. I watched the trailer.
When was it supposed to be?
2006.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I watched the trailer on it, and it looks like, GTA.
It looks like a GTA knockoff.
Oh, yeah. It's a fun... You kind of watch it, and it's a little fun to watch. And it's like, man, I wonder what that game would have been like. They got... Dude,
that's wacky.
They got as far as making a trailer. So that thing had to have been pretty damn close to being done.
Yeah.
And
I wonder what stopped them from releasing it.
I might be researching more on that because like I was like very fascinated.
I'm looking into that myself too. It's at the time period where like they felt every movie ever needed a video game version of it.
Yeah, remember like you had Space Jam, Independence Day, Star Wars.
There's like a Thing video game.
Played that. Yeah. That was a tragic one.
Yeah. Every movie ever needs its own video game.
Dude, well, and it led me into like what movies would be fun to be turned into video games though.
Mm-hmm. True.
Like
and that could be a question.
Yeah. So that if you come up with an answer, let me know because I said it and I was like, I guess Taxi Driver might be fun because it could definitely. It looks like it took a GTA vibe with it, and they were just gonna make you like. The whole thing is like him going through like all the scenes are him beating the shit out of people.
Yeah,
and it's a weird like I wonder what they would have.
Maybe they thought it would have been like too.
Actually, it leads into your dream sequence.
Violent,
like
Yeah.
He end of the movie and said
end of the movie. It's his video game.
It turns into a video game. He went the wrong way.
That's
with
where the
his
story
mental
goes.
health.
Yeah. This is all a fucking hallucination.
Yeah,
it's a fever
it's a
dream.
Sequel. We didn't want to make a movie sequel. We just felt like we come out with a video game.
Yeah.
And have a nice tie-in ending there.
Yeah. If you like the lore, check this out.
Yeah.
Was there anything else before we get into our rating? This was a good long discussion.
Yeah, it was, and there's plenty of stuff out there, so we could keep going on it. But no, I think I'm good.
I literally could keep talking about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, we can move on.
If I had to guess what your score is,
well, I think you're going first on this one.
Yeah,
very curious.
Well, I have such a hard time, and this thing may change. All right, I am a 9 out of 10 right now. Mm-hmm. And literally only a 9 out of 10 because of rewatchability.
Because of the hair. Oh, yeah. That.
Yeah. No. Well, I know why you're a 9 out of 10.
Hey, I already said a disclaimer, all right?
Yeah, that's right.
Get off my ass.
Yeah. No, I've literally... Well, so I get done with it. I'm like, man, pretty good. 9 out of 10. And then I'm like, today I'm like, all right, like I'm kind of like, all right, yeah. And then I'm thinking more about it and the the tones and the sounds and the air. Like, it just looks so. Those are my favorite types of scenes. I think that's why I like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. It's that natural lighting, going down the strip, being immersed in the world, making the world the world. It's not living on stage. It's not being in these sets. It's actually being immersed in these real life environments. With the characters, it gives it so much more of a better feel for the film.
100%.
So I'm gonna say 9 out of 10, but like literally, if you talk to me tomorrow, it could be a 10 out of 10. Like I'm so close. If I'm still like, man, like more thoughts pop up about the movie. It's it's just really well done, and this is a great movie that you could sit down with someone and just ham it out.
Yeah.
If you're not too uncomfortable with everything that's taking place, because I'll tell you right now, 12-year-old prostitute shootings and scum of the earth and killing a senator. Like,
know your audience when you watch this movie with people.
That might rub people the wrong way. So, but if you find out, like-minded individual that like the film, like this is a good one to sit down, because like even the end that we didn't really we just touched on, like I'm sure there's merits both ways, and those are the best movies of when it's over with, there's still talking points about how you perceived it.
Yeah. Watch this with people who think violence and shooting is cool, guys. That's what I mean.
And don't mind bad haircuts.
This is my favorite Scorsese movie. It's easily my number one, especially after the second viewing. I love it as a character study. I love the way it's filmed, it's put together. It was very ahead of its time and has that timeless quality to it that I can keep going back to. I'm excited to show people that haven't seen this and to get their thoughts on it. Specifically thinking about Megan.
You just said know your audience.
I know my audience will experience this movie.
We underline
one way
the
or
no.
another.
We underline the no. You have the I in there. Yeah. It's not I know the audience. It's I know the audience.
I know the audience has no choice in the matter.
Doesn't that sound a little different?
We are the people. Yeah. We are the people. No, I had this at a 9 out of 10, but this second viewing, it really came around for me, especially. So 10 out of 10.
Wow. I thought you were going to go 8 out of 10.
It's 7 out of 10 because of the haircut. Yeah. It did affect my rating after all, fuckers. Joke's on you, you pieces of shit.
Got all of you assholes. You thought I wasn't knocking it down.
You thought April Fool's was 4 months away? Joke's on you, sons of bitches. All right. Speaking of our audience and possibly alienating them, we got some questions that we can answer. I don't know if we're going to get through all of them because we are already at over the 2-hour mark, but we can see how far we get. Sure. And then if need be, we can save them for next time.
Yeah.
So this first one, and I feel like this is maybe a question we've answered before, but maybe we can rack our brains a little bit, is from Joanne, my mom. And she asks, what's your favorite animated children's movie and why? I feel like this is a question that is tailored.
Seen Taxi Driver? Like, is this a Jodie Foster poll?
Yeah.
Just remember, kids are pure and innocent.
Movie with children in it.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then Funny Games.
Oh my God.
No, I feel like this is kind of tailored towards you, especially since you have offspring.
Willow.
I have no offspring.
Yeah. Oh.
Except for Piper, I guess.
So we have to go super ironic, where I give a dark comedic movie, and then you go with the lighthearted Finding Nemo.
I mean, however you want to tailor it. It's up to you.
Favorite animated film with kids in it?
What's your favorite animated children's movie and why? So I'm assuming animated movie made for kids.
Okay. You got one ready to go?
I've got some that I can shoot off.
You rattle off some because I'm going to try to think. I mean,
I'm just going to rattle off ones that I grew up with. So like Monsters Inc., Bugs Life, a lot of Pixar stuff.
Yeah. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
That is animated. You know what movie I was really into?
Fox and the Hound.
Unfortunately, no. Cats Don't Dance. You ever watch that movie?
Nope.
Do you know about it?
Nope.
It was kind of an obscure one. I don't think it was Disney exactly. I think it was a Don Bluth thing where it was this anthropomorphic cat who really loved to dance on stage. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with it.
I'm picking up on it.
Yeah, and then he has to kind of wrangle this downtrodden Broadway troupe that's made up of all these other different animals. So there's a female cat, and then there's an alligator, there's a bear or some shit, there's a gorilla. And then like they're being led by this like human little girl who's like a monster. Like she presents herself as something that is delightful and cheerful and whimsical and she's so lovely and cute and sweet. And then you get to know her and she's like an actual like villainous piece of shit. And I don't know, I really liked that movie. I thought it was a fun, nicely animated time. So I guess that would be my answer.
Great character study. Travis
Bickle pops in the movie, starts shooting the people on stage.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm Pixar. I don't think that there's so much stuff out there now.
I mean, like classic Disney too, like Lion King and all the others.
I'm more Pixar. Like the nostalgia that I have of the films, like I see that stuff up, and I don't know if it's the 2D element, or maybe I should say 2D. I mean, but
fuck hand drawn. Am I right?
Yeah, like that's where I'm at. Like
pieces of shit.
Lion
Glad
King's
it's fucking
still
dead.
good. Like I don't know, Aladdin's all right. I don't know. So I'm more into the Pixar scene. I'm trying to think of like a fun. I don't know if there's a fun movie that I could just. The Iron Giant is a good one. But like when it comes to kids' sentiment and wanting to show them something, like to me with everything that I see now, I'm like, that's just so outdated, Like,
what's the most recent animated kids movie that you enjoy? I would say
recent,
yeah,
like
one that's just come out, like the most recently that you watched that you were like, okay, I actually like that as a movie.
No, I like the movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't all of them.
Okay.
Pixar comes out with stuff. I watch it, and
I watched Coco recently. I really liked that.
Yeah, I mean, Enchanted would probably feel good, and I might be getting mixed up with the Disney and the Pixar, like on what does what. But what I'm saying is like the Cinderellas, the Snow Whites, the Lion Kings, the Aladdins, like that stuff. I don't hold the nostalgia that I thought I would have to want to show my offspring.
Yeah.
So like to me, it's more so of like what's just kind of coming out. And I think the difference is we only had a small selection. Like you weren't watching a kids movie until Disney came out with whatever in 98,
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just you had to wait.
And Disney kind of had the market corner too, especially with like American audiences.
Yeah. Like there's just not much you're getting into, but now there's so much stuff out there. It's like, it's all good. And I think I any Pixar film I would show Willow, and me and Preston, I try to show him as much as I can, but we're drifting more into live action, not Disney live action, but like Godzilla and the fun monster ones.
Yeah. You're gonna get into the PMC territory at some point with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be fun.
One of them will hopefully like it, and one of them, no idea.
No idea. Well, they're pretty much a blank slate at this point.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from Connie, kind of in line with childhood thread that we have going on here, but she asks, "What was the one movie that scared you the most when you were little?" That one I have a hard time thinking of because I just avoided all that stuff. So I can't even like think of a specific one that comes to mind, I guess. But I guess it could be like any movie that like maybe your parents were watching and you were like, "Oh no, this is too scary for me."
Boy howdy, where do you guys want me to go? So when I was real little, the Brave Little Toaster scared the shit out of me.
I thought of one.
The Brave Little Toaster. When I was at my godparents' house, they were watching Dennis Leary and like Creep Show or Tales from the Crypt. He's fighting some vampires, and there's a scene where a vampire is dressed up as a whorehouse. Mm-hmm. So he brings his buddy there, and there's a vampire that is getting frisky with one of the guys. Not like anything that's graphic or anything like that, but she sticks her tongue through his ear and it goes out the other ear to kill him. Saw that when I was 6. I was like, boy, I didn't know that could happen, so that kind of scared me. And then The Rock, when that came out in 97, 98, and one of the opening scenes is the guy's dropping one of those little parcels of atomic energy or whatever, and it melts his face off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mars Attacks was kind of scary when they were turning everyone into bones. Yeah.
So I thought of a couple actually, and one of them is going to be a source for a nice story. So the first one I thought of was, and it's kind of in line with Brave Little Toaster. I thought of a Don Bluth cartoon, The American Tail. Have you seen that one? It's a little mouse boy. It's kind of like an analogy for like the Holocaust.
Oh,
because
okay.
I think his name is like Mousewitz or something, and they have to like immigrate to America to like escape the like evil cats or whatever. But then they encounter other cats in their destination, and at the end of the movie, light spoilers for American Tail, I guess. The mice come up with like this robotic contraption of like a giant mouse.
Yeah.
And they release it, and it's like the scariest fucking thing when you're like 3 years old watching that movie, because
Probably
like it's got like
6.
it's got like the roar of like a Godzilla basically, and it's got like red glowing eyes, and it's like bigger than all the other characters. Like it's the size of a building compared to them. And that shit was kind of terrifying, and it moved slowly, so like it kind of had that extra creepy factor.
Claymation, jolty, herky jerky things.
It was like kind of like a blend of like 2D and 3D animation, so it like looked really uncanny too.
The Narful the Garfunk in Airhead or Coneheads. I think there's a thing like that in one of the Star Wars films where it's almost like claymation or kind of not CGI, but like put this thing together against a backdrop.
Yeah,
those things are terrifying.
And then there was one movie, I don't even remember what the movie's called. I just remember kind of the scene, but like it was a movie with a giant snake eating people that my dad was watching, and I don't think it was Anaconda, because I feel like I would have been old enough at that point to not be scared by that movie, but it must have been like some other big snake movie he was watching when I was like younger, like probably like 7 or 8 or something.
Okay.
And then finally this is a fun story. So I remember specifically when I was little, there was a scene in a movie that my dad was watching where this guy is like trying to hold a door. He's like in a cabin, and it's like kind of an outdoorsy movie, but it's like being presented really in a scary way.
Yeah.
And this guy is like holding back this door, and something's like breaking it down. And on the other side is this giant fucking bear, and he breaks the door down, and the bear starts like jumping on the door that the guy is underneath. Like he's trapped underneath the door.
Squishing the guy. Yeah.
And I remember that being like a really scary fucking scene.
Oh, yeah.
And thinking like, this is terrifying. I don't know what this movie is. I don't know like what's going on here. But that memory has always been like in my head.
Yep.
Like I've never forgotten it. So the other day, probably like a few weeks ago actually, I was, typing that into Google trying to describe the scene, and I found it. And it's not a horror movie. It is a comedy called The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd.
Oh my God.
And the scene is played for laughs. It's played for goofs. Like, Dan Aykroyd's kind of laughing at the fact that John Candy's being crushed by this goofy fucking bear that knocked the door down.
And you're terrified.
I completely misremembered that scene as something that was scary, when in fact it was supposed to be funny.
Have you seen it since then? Or?
I looked up a video on YouTube, and it's the same scene.
So are you still terrified?
Always. It still gives me nightmares.
Yeah.
But no, it's like I completely misremembered it as a kid. Like my memory just like created this narrative that it was a scarier scene than it actually was.
I believe it. I mean, Mars Attacks is a comedy. I haven't seen it since it came out. Mm-hmm. We did it at the hotel. We rented it, and it was a late night. And have you seen Mars Attacks?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it.
Yeah, there's Martians come and they zap people. Like when they zap them, they just disintegrate. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be like it's a spoof, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scared those people, when you see like death at a very young age, no matter what, I mean, that guy should have died, John Candy
being crushed by a bear should have resulted in him not being alive.
Yeah. Like it's, I guess when you're older, it plays off for laughs or like, man, that was crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Like if you see it at the wrong age, yeah.
Hey, how wacky is that? Hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And then I'm thinking we can do maybe one more question. So the questions that we'll save for next episode are from Zach and Wes.
Okay.
So I'm going to save those for episode 63.
Perfect.
But this last one I think we can rattle off pretty quick. From Levi. And he just simply asks, Favorite Quentin Tarantino movie and why? I can go first.
Yeah, I already know.
It's kind of a cliched answer. I feel like this is a lot of people's favorite, but it's my favorite for a reason. Django Unchained. I love that movie. I think it combines all the best stuff that I like about Tarantino into one movie, and I think that it is his most well-rounded movie as far as like what I like to see from him.
Yeah, it's a fair answer. That one, I mean, about as Tarantino as you can get with a actually good storyline and good characters. Mine's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I saw that coming.
Well, a close second. I'm like sitting there. I was like, dude, I love fucking Inglourious Bastards so much. And honestly, like if I had to choose one over the other, I'm pretty sure I'm going with Once Upon a Time. I had that on for the New Year movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got an hour and 30 into it, and I'm like, I gotta go to bed, and I didn't know how far I was because it's a great film, and you just get lost in it, and it's like, man, like if I let this roll, there's still another hour 20 left that I'm gonna watch. I had to shut it off. Yeah. For the reasons why I like it, I just love the character. I mean, I love the characters in it. I love the setting of it,
the vibes,
and. To me, it's about as grounded as Tarantino's been with his own.
It's his most grounded movie.
I mean, but his own kind of spin on what happens, and it's so fun to think about the end. We're not going to talk about the ending, but the possibilities of what the outcomes of the ending of the film and what happens with the characters. It's always fun thoughts, and there's a little bit more. There's some deeper elements into it that you could really play off with your own theories.
Yeah. 100%. I have my ranking. Do you want me to rattle that off real quick?
Sure.
So, disclaimer, I haven't seen Hateful Eight, Jackie Brown, or Death Proof. I think those are the only ones of his that I haven't checked out yet. But just to let people know. So, my number 1, Django. Number 2, what would you guess my number 2 is?
Inglourious.
No. My number 2 is Kill Bill, Volume 1.
Figures.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm a Kill Bill slut. My number 3,
Kill Bill Volume 2.
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
I know. Number 4.
Kill Bill Volume 2.
You're just going to keep guessing that.
Reservoir Dogs.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Wrong.
Hey, listen, what? My number 2 through 4 spots are all 9 out of 10s. I'm just letting you know right now.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Kill Bill Volume 2.
Inglourious Bastards.
Dude.
Number 6.
Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
All right.
Hey, number 7.
Death Proof. No. Kill Bill Volume 2.
Yay!
All right.
You
so
got
it.
it.
7 of them?
Yes.
I think I've seen all of his. I have... For me, I mean, it's it'd go Once Upon a Time, Inglourious, Pulp Fiction, Django, Reservoir Dogs.
Kill Bill.
No, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
It's that low,
dude. The last 4. So you got the 2 Kill Bills, you got Death Proof, and you got Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown. I would probably have Kill Bill above Jackie Brown just because of the cinematic element of it, and I mean, the movie, like Tarantino, what he does in the film, but I like dude, that's my maestro. Where it's like it just does not resonate with me of everything going on.
Yeah.
So I think I'd have that above Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown's just a fun small stakes movie. But it with
I want to check that
lower impacted characters. I just don't think the acting was necessarily there.
Okay.
So, and then Death Proof, and then probably Kill Bill Volume 2. Death Proof is the one with Planet Terror is the zombie one. Death Proof is with the card. Death Proof has some fun, tension-filled moments.
Yeah, and I'll check it out eventually.
Yeah, I tried to watch it again, and like with the Tarantino films, man, they're so like. I definitely know that I'm not the biggest Kill Bill fan. So.
Oh, really?
I mean, that could be 9 and 10 or 8 and 9 for me, however the. So I don't know. Death Proof is directed by him, right? I know they did the double feature with Planet Terror. And
double feature with Rodriguez doing Planet Terror.
he's still got one more coming out, right?
Yep.
10th and final one, or
Supposed to be called The Critic, I believe.
Oh God, I can't wait to see that.
There's rumors circulating that he's aiming to get I think his name is Paul Walter Hauser or something. The guy who was in Richard Jewell, the big guy, Richard Jewell himself. I don't know. That's like the only thing I can think of him being.
What's Richard Jewell?
It's the Clint Eastwood directed movie about the guy who, I don't even remember what he does, but like he's a real life guy who like makes an impact in the news and makes a story out of it, and then like there's a whole media circus about it. It came out, I want to say, within the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
But that's like his biggest movie that he's been in since.
Got it.
Yeah.
So
cool. There's our little Tarantino corner for the episode. Last bit of business before we get to wrap up.
Yes.
I get to make a recommendation. Yay. Hey guys, this is Kyle from the podcast. I apologize for cutting in during this conversation. You're about to find out what the film recommendations from myself are going to be, which is the most exciting thing that I think you'll have experienced this past week. But I have to make this message because it kind of clarifies what's going to happen for episode 63 coming out. So instead of the recommendation that I make for episode 63, which would have been a double feature of The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, we're actually going to have Sam back on as a guest for our next episode, and we're going to cover the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. So those will be the films that we'll cover in episode 63, and then we will save my double feature recommendations of Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile for episode 64. I just wanted to throw this in there just to let you guys know, but I'm going to keep the rest of the conversation that took place in this episode. I figured it's extra content. You get to hear me and Mac shoot the shit a little bit more, and gives you a bit of insight into what is on the docket for the Neon Crew podcast. So anyway, again, I apologize for interrupting, but we will go back to our regularly scheduled programming. So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Are you feeling a newer release with one that I recommend, or are you feeling me recommending double feature 2 movies that would go well together? So
we could do 2 movies that go well together.
Okay. I'll save the one that I have for next time.
So
unless you wanted to talk about a newer movie.
That's what I'm curious. I don't know what's grabbing people's attention.
Well, if you decide to see Ferrari, we could talk about that.
Ooh. Okay.
Otherwise,
are you serving it up on a platter right now? What were like the options? Or
I'm just giving you the choice. So let me look up what's in the cinemas right now. Cinema.
You'd want to see 2 new movies, or you'd want to pair Ferrari with something?
I'd pair Ferrari with something, or like another new movie with something, or I would recommend a double feature of 2 older movies.
Interesting.
Yep. That are different from the single recommendation I would pair with the new one. If that is at all making sense.
Yep.
So we got, there's Ferrari. If you see Iron Claw, we could talk about that.
I know, I'm getting pushed on that.
There is The Boy and the Heron. I mean, I'm always going to recommend that to people. Listen, that is a great fucking movie. Otherwise, probably those 3.
Let's
unless you wanted to talk about Godzilla -1, but I feel like there's not that much to talk about with that one.
Hey, no. It's a good no, there's not. It's just a good film.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's anyways, well, it depends if we have Sam on the show or not. So let's
That is true. We did talk about that before.
Let's just do the double feature. There's not a lot out in cinema right now, and the ones, I mean, if I have time to go and see the stuff, I mean, that's the other thing I'm thinking about. But I'm more interested in the double feature, and hopefully we get some. I like these juicy topics.
Okay, let me look up some info about it, and we'll go
2
from
French dystopian films.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What did you say something about new films?
Yeah, I'm recommending.
Yeah, let's watch. Yeah.
So these are 2 films from the same director.
Interesting.
Came out in the 90s.
Old films. Gee, come on, dude.
I know, right?
The fuck.
I'm such a fucking duffer, aren't I? Like I said, 2 films from the same director. Both came out relatively the same time. So I have to keep switching between these 2 movies. One of them from 1994, the other one from 1999.
What's the same director?
Frank Darabont.
I know Darabont.
They're both adaptations of Stephen King films. Or Stephen King novels, I should say, or novellas.
So we got Shawshank and we got The Green Mile.
I'm recommending a double feature of The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Shawshank Redemption I've seen multiple times. The Green Mile I have not seen.
Okay.
What about you?
I've seen both.
Okay.
I mean, and I don't mind getting some Shawshank in there.
I figured I'd throw this in because it's one that is a good classic that I think would get people involved in listening. So
let's do it, because I know I'm also thinking about my fiance, and I think that she will like both these films. And I also dropped the "How often do you look at someone's shoes" line on her. It is one of the things I live by in this world when I'm doing things. Of how often do you actually notice?
You brought up Shawshank this episode.
That's what I'm saying. Like, dude, that line, when I heard that line when I was on my summer internship, it really stood out with me of he's got a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to remember this point because, how often do people notice these small part of the scenery, things that subtly change?
Yeah.
And I love it. So I don't mind getting Shawshank in. Green Mile, we'll watch it again. Yeah.
I'm curious as to how Green Mile will go. I know it's one of those things where it's so in the pop culture that I kind of know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
I kind of know what to expect, but I'm still eager to jump in. And then Shawshank I haven't seen in a while, so I'm curious to rewatch that.
Same. That's one thing too with the new movie lens that I have or we have. I think there'll be 2 fun conversations. So that yeah.
I think so. Cool. Well, if you guys don't want to be spoiled for The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, both directed by Frank Darabont, be sure to check those films out before episode 63. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Neon Crew Podcast. You can find us at neoncrewpodcast.com. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Check out our various social medias on Facebook and YouTube community page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and give us some good ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Shout out to Gideon for doing our music and to Lauren for designing our logo. You can find their various pages, their social medias in the description of this episode. And again, thank you guys so much. We're going to episode 63. That'll be pretty epic. Diving into Stephen King adaptations. Arguably some of the more well-regarded ones, but I guess we'll be the determiners of that.
You haven't seen Well, you have seen Silver Bullet.
I have. And Anyway.
Stephen King rankings coming up next.
Hey. I don't know how many Stephen King movies I've seen. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's more than 4. I know that.
Okay.
It's more than 4.
Well, you'll have it queued up next time.
Right? Of an extensive list. What do we say at the end of the episodes, McClain?
I don't know, man. WWTHD.
Bye, everyone.